You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent and Austen Show.
Oh, there she is. Old TPC Sawgrass on a beautiful week here in Northeast Florida in Ponte Vedra. And the world watches, the golf world specifically, but I think even the casuals will keep an eye on this one for the next 4 days and check out such a beautiful sight as we've got some fantastic weather here at the 2025 Players Championship. We'll talk a little bit about the golf tournament. Just met with some first-timers and obviously a lot of festivities going on the eve of the 2025 Players Championship, one of our favorite events here in Jacksonville because it's a party, and Jacksonville does like a party. Brent Martineau, Jason Hamby back in the Action Sports Jax 24/7 studios, lonely today, and Austen Lane up early, and Adam in Montana. Did we figure out what city in Montana?
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. I'm in Whitefish, Montana, and I'm snowboarding at the, I guess it would be like the Whitefish Mountain in Montana. And we got about, I would probably say 3 inches of snow, it looks like, on the ground over the night. So going to be a fun day snowboarding today.
Oh. Well, we couldn't be in two different climates then right now.
By the looks of your shots, I would say, yeah, that is absolutely correct.
Yeah, one's golf and one's skiing or snowboarding. But you had a good day out there.
Fantastic day. Yep. Didn't get hurt, which is the most important part. But yeah, it's a little different going from like what I'm accustomed to riding in Wisconsin, where it might be like a minute run, to what we're talking about here in Montana, where like, you're on your board going downhill for a few minutes. I think that the longest run that we hit yesterday was 2 miles. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
How about that? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like those long runs when you go skiing. I've never been snowboarding, so I don't know the difference. But obviously, from a skiing standpoint, I like the long runs. That was like kind of like where you can build up some speed, but you're not going straight down.
No, it definitely keeps you guessing. There's a lot of like, you can go tree skiing in between the trees and everything. They got a little bit of everything here. So it's, like the first day is kind of just getting your bearings because it's such a big mountain. And then today we kind of know what spots to hit. And hopefully, because, the snow is kind of coming down, that it won't be that busy with people trying to get here. But I feel like it's Montana, man. And I feel like everyone's kind of prepared for the snow. They got the chains on the tires. And I guess it's like it's a big carrying state because everyone, I feel like, has a gun in their car. So that's a little
really?
Background to Montana for you.
Yeah, I think it is a big carrying state, to be honest. Would figure that. I'm watching the latest episode of or the latest season of 1923, so I'm with you in spirit, actually, out there in the wild part of the United States of America. I was thinking about this. I wonder what the football team of choice is like in Montana. I mean, do you think it's like the Seahawks, the Packers? Who do you lean toward? Do you think? I mean, Denver's not too far away. I'm trying to think of my geography here. I wonder who they kind of. It's probably a mixed bag. But I wonder if they actually I wonder who the natives would root for.
So it's really weird because we went to a sports bar the first night that we got in, and it's like the Montana college football teams they have like all the jerseys and everything hanging up, which is wild. But this is definitely more of a hockey state, Brent. If I was going to say football, I'd probably say it's a combination of, I've seen Seahawks jerseys. I think I saw one Broncos jersey. But honestly, the most jerseys that I've seen on that, because, kids will love to rock the jerseys when they're snowboarding or skiing. I've seen so many Detroit Lions jerseys. I've seen I would probably say 5 Amon-Ra St. Brown jerseys out of nowhere. So I'm not sure if there's just like a big trip out of Michigan, people coming over here, but there's a lot of Lions jerseys rolling deep here in Montana.
That's wild you said that, because I saw something. I forget where it was. It was a couple weeks ago. Steph and I think we might have been down in the Fort Myers area. Maybe it was Vegas at this time, because we went to like 3 different places in 36 hours, it felt like. But I saw a guy with a Lions polo shirt on. And then like a day later, I saw another person with like a Lions, I don't know, like one of these type of shirts that I'm wearing. And I was like, all right, that's never been done in the history of my life. I've seen 2 people with Lions shirts on. Like you just don't, it is, I mean, I'm sure people say this about the Jags. I actually did in Vegas, saw a guy with a Jags hat on, which I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if I know that guy. But
yeah,
it's just funny how like some teams, it really jars you when you see like their logo or they're, out of place, like not in the region where they're from. And Detroit kind of, even though it's got a ton of history, Detroit was one of those. Well, my point in that is you can almost tell when people jump on the bandwagon. And I've never been a bandwagon critic. I think the bandwagon's cool. Like, I think the bandwagon's important. Especially to grow fan bases in places like Jacksonville. Detroit's got a big fan base, but it could be bigger right across the country. So it doesn't bother me a bit. I just thought it was pretty funny that you mentioned Detroit, because I saw the same thing. And I think these last couple of years have energized people and said, hey, I like that. That's kind of cool. And maybe to a point of, hey, can you get that in Jacksonville? Seattle actually reminded me of that a decade plus ago, the Legion of Boom, right? Where they became this kind of hot team where people wanted to, they didn't know a lot of Seahawks fans. So it's like cool if you were a Seahawks fan all of a sudden, even if you were a kid and you're wearing Russell Wilson jerseys, because the jerseys are really cool. The uniforms were nice. Can the Jags get there? I feel like we've asked that question a few times over the last dozen years. Can the Jags be a cool team for kids in other states or other parts of the country to latch onto?
No, without a doubt. And that's the biggest thing, right? Because kids these days, I mean, when every highlight is accessible on social media, kids tend to go, I think, more with players than actually teams. I mean, obviously, if you're a kid growing up in, whether it's Baltimore or Kansas City, like, you're probably going to gravitate towards a winning team. And that's kind of the thing with always the youth, I feel like. I mean, when I was a kid, it was all about the, Jordan and the Bulls. Why? Because, well, they won a lot. So it was really fun to cheer for a winner. So winning games has something to do with it as well. Don't get me wrong. And yeah, I think, we talk about Jacksonville. I mean, I think Maurice Jones-Drew was always kind of the player that was cool to cheer for, right? He was kind of the fantasy darling. I felt like a lot of people had his jerseys and everything, but to be fair, yeah, I think like we need that. I mean, you have Josh Hines Allen, right? Like, you hope Trevor can take a step forward and kind of become that household name nationally. But yeah, you really don't have a lot of players, I feel like, that kids outside of Jacksonville will roll with right now. But I think if you start winning games, you start, having more highlights, that can change. And I think, yeah, Detroit, it's kind of weird to see Detroit in that scenario now, just because when I was growing up, like, if you had a Detroit Lions jersey on, you almost got a hug. It's like, I'm so sorry, like, dude, I mean, better times will come. And obviously Calvin Johnson eventually, kind of put him on the map a little bit. But I almost feel like, and I get maybe Jacksonville is kind of down that list in terms of popularity of jerseys that you want, but I still feel like Cleveland is like at the bottom. I feel like it's like the Cleveland Browns, where it's just like, if you see a Browns jersey, damn well that person's been like a diehard Browns fan forever. Or like, if a kid's wearing a Browns jersey, damn well like his dad or his grandparents like made him wear it, because like, they're trying to pass down the tradition to that child. Like, there's no child that says, hey, go ahead and get me, like, with all due respect, because he's a great player, but like a Nick Chubb jersey, or like, go ahead and get me, I don't know, give me another player that
Myles Garrett.
That you'd be. I guess Myles Garrett is like the exception, right? Like, he is the beast that he is. But yeah, I feel like their jerseys are kind of few and far between as well.
That's a good point. I think you're right. And listen, you said something in there, like to give the hug part. I find that because obviously I've been covering the Jags for 15 plus years. So when I go back home to Rhode Island, right, in the New England area, and those places, people are almost like, sorry, like, or you can adopt, hey, we're rooting for the Jags too. Like, it's a cute little thing. Like, I know the Patriots win all the time, but we're rooting for the Jags. Like, the Jags actually have a little bit of that, where it's like, it's very few people across the country hate the Jags, is the point, right? I mean, you can get that sentimental feeling, almost that sympathetic feeling, almost into some fandom, and even here locally to some degree, because we have so many people that move into Northeast Florida that actually love another team because that's where they were born and raised somewhere else. And now they adopt the Jags as kind of their second team and all of that. So it is kind of a fun psychology with fandom, and the Jags are sitting pretty, whereas if they do go on a run, that you could really increase your fan base. And they already feel like they have increased their fan base because of London and some other things and some small little stints of runs. But if you could really go on a 3-year thing, Trevor Lawrence is really cool. Brian Thomas Jr. is really cool, helping your fantasy team. They could really grow their brand of fandom across the country.
Without a doubt, and obviously we get closer to Shock Your Mock, we'll start talking about this a little bit as well, where I feel like, there are some guys in the draft where if you take them in the first round, I feel like they're immediately going to boost you in terms of popularity. They're going to immediately boost you in front of the youth. And I think that is obviously spearheaded by a guy like Travis Hunter. I mean, yeah, we can talk about, building up the trenches, which they need to do, obviously. I don't think they're satisfied yet. Interior defensive line. Graham's going to be there. But I think if you want to take it the other direction, and listen, jersey sales and popularity doesn't win you Super Bowls. Like, let's not get it twisted here. But if you wanted to try to make a splash, and try to be that cool team, I feel like, then I think Travis Hunter would be the guy to draft.
Yeah, you're right on that. He is that guy that really could turn the needle and also create some polarization. I think he's going to be a polarizing guy just because of people's perception, really more than the reality. But if he comes here and helps out, and you're right, that could grow the fandom, that could grow the eyeballs. The guy I think of from a win, if Travis Hunter were to join the Jacksonville Jaguars, is Shad Khan. It's like, what a great win for Shad Khan and his football team, right? And by the way, terrific player. So it could be a huge win for Trevor Lawrence, could be a huge win for Liam Cohen, could be a huge win for the whole franchise. But I do think of Shad Khan in that vein because, listen, there are just some guys you're like, wow, I can really turn the needle here. And I think Hunter is one of those from an NFL standpoint, from an eyeball standpoint, from an NFL network, ESPN, where you're going to get guys talking. I think Hunter is certainly the guy in this draft. And you don't always have those guys in the draft. But he is definitely the guy in this draft. Also, I just tweeted something out, and I don't know if you see this as much or feel this. You've been kind of all over the place. You're not on social media as much as I am to begin with. And so maybe you don't have a feel for this as much. But I just tweeted this out. I'll just read what I said. I said, we have some interesting things happening in Jacksonville right now. So many fans are on board with the regime that if anything is criticized by even media, the regime is going, I typoed, this is what happens when you talk and tweet, is getting defended. I think that's kind of awesome. And so my point here is I feel like we just went through this window, or maybe this time, and maybe I just feel like this so much because I have been more sunshine and rainbows about this organization at times over the years than most other people. And I try to take, okay, let's look at it from this lens or whatever else. And some of it's just my true feelings. It's not really a calculated thing, but I have been labeled that over time. But even in the last couple of years, it's been hard to defend some things, right? Not just recently, but if you go back to Urban, that whole mess, everything that transpired when you get the number one pick overall 2 years in a row. And then last year it becomes very difficult to defend some things. In fact, I somehow found my way into the antagonistic part of all of that. It seemed like last year. So I find it interesting, not all, but many people, when we were talking about Ingram over the last week, or Kirk, they were like, don't worry, this is the right, they almost are shaping it like, don't worry, those guys got it. Gladstone, Cohen, Baselli, they got it. There's just this overwhelming belief right now, and I've hinted this twice this week at least already, where I've said it's ABB, it's anybody but bulky. There's an element of that as well. But I actually find this really cool that everyone, for whatever reason, however we landed here, at least the fan base, a majority of them, from what I can tell, seems to be all in on this group and to trust what they are doing. To sit here and say, even though I know the answer is, yeah, we're different, but not maybe better than we were a week ago here in Jacksonville on this roster, it's okay because they're about to make even more moves. It's almost stunning for me to hear that from people. We have not had that kind of faith in this organization. I mean, maybe since I've been here. Of course, when you win in 17, you come off 17, you're like, oh, let's go, everybody's on board. You win in 22, everybody's on board. But we haven't had this kind of almost blind faith for a regime here in Jacksonville since I've been here that I can remember. It's a little bit stunning to me. But I will tell you this, I'm not bringing it up as a criticism. I think it's kind of cool that the fans are all in right now, or seemingly all in.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the key phrase, I think, is seemingly all in, because it's social media, right? And I'll be honest, like, I think when the Jaguars brought in Urban Meyer, I think there was definitely an excitement. I think there was definitely an intrigue of fans kind of rallying and getting behind something new, something outside the box. And I was one of those people. Like, I was excited for Urban Meyer to showcase what he could do, because I think we all thought, we're going to win here in Jacksonville. And obviously that backfired drastically. I mean, yeah, I'm not on social media a lot, but I do see, the excitement for the new regime, and I do see the defense of the new regime. I mean, I see it in my own comments when I talked about Evan Ingram, and I thought how much, he meant to the team. And a lot of people disagree with me, which is, hey, that's cool. I mean, if you want to bring in injuries, if you want to bring in, I guess, lack of production on the field, my only point was, I think in terms of leadership, I think in terms of what he stood for, I think in terms of just having a guy that, you can learn from, I feel like he was at the top. But people want to disagree with me, and that's fine. But I think this is the thing of social media, Brent. And this is, I feel like, why I'm never really on it too much anymore. I mean, obviously I'm on it sometimes, but this is why I don't revolve my life around social media, because I feel like it is so influential, especially when it comes to sports, where somebody can go on Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter. Sorry, Elon. Go and find me if you want. Somebody can go on Twitter and make a great point, or at least at the time, make an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
And that will trickle down, and people will see that point. It's like, yeah, this guy's making a lot of sense. He's saying what I want to hear. And then people gravitate towards that, and it's like an echo chamber where everybody kind of, shares the same belief system. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like that's fandom, right? Like that's what social media is supposed to. Well, it's one of the reasons that it's supposed to be for. But I think we're seeing now with the free agent cycle where one person will say, "Hey, this is actually a great signing. You should give it a chance." And everyone's like, "You know what? Yeah, this guy's got a lot of followers. I'm going to follow this dude." And it trickles down and it snowballs, and that's what it is. And listen, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's the way that it is. So I guess that's one reason why I'm not always on social media, because I don't want to be influenced. Like I want to stick to my opinion that I feel like Evan Ingram being let go is a mistake. I want to stick to my opinion. And listen, we'll talk about this later because I may have shifted this one a little bit, but with Jordan Lewis now, what is it going to look like with Jerry Jones? Like, did you make a mistake by saying, "Hey, Jerry, we love what you did last year, but you're playing on the outside now"? And I think there's more to it that I hope we can get into today a little bit in terms of what Jordan Lewis is going to do and what Jerry Jones is going to do if you looked at what happened with the Green Bay Packers last year. So there's a talking point that we can get into a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it's tribalism, Brent, but it's everyone kind of being in their own world and thinking, you know what, that's a great point. I'm going to share that opinion. I think the more opinions that you can get, where they're calculated, where they're fair, that disagree, the more conversation you have. Like, I don't want to be in a world, I'll be honest, I don't want to be in a fan base or be in a world where everyone's like, yeah, Gladstone knows what he's doing, and like this is the perfect, off season, and like every single move that he's made has been perfect, and we all faith in Gladstone. Like, yeah, that's what you can believe, but it's okay to question things. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm not sure if that was the right decision, because this is his first crack at it, right? And then hopefully we do this in the draft as well. Like, there's a lot of draft capital right now for the Jaguars. Is every draft pick going to be an A+? Well, we may treat it like it until we see it on the field, but I guarantee you, once the season starts, there's going to be a pick where it's like, you know what, I'm not sure if we should have went that direction. But I get the excitement, I get the enthusiasm, and this is what hope looks like, right? This is what intrigue looks like. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, me either. Like, again, this is really just a conversation point, not necessarily even a debatable thing. I just think it's an observation. Yeah. It's an observation right now, and it's cool. You just hit on a lot of those points. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I just really feel like it's kind of it's refreshing. This regime is a bit refreshing because it's a reset. And let me hit on that word reset. That's part of the reason this fan base is where they're at right now. They've been kind of begging for a reset. There's only been two, 2013, and this one. That's it. There's always been carryover and try to mix this with that and everything else. This is a clean reset, and a totally different front office. And I really think that has people excited and on the same page. And again, I think Shad took a while to get here, but he got here. If he got here accidentally, however he got here. And this is where we're at. So I think I just think it's fast. I just think it's pretty fascinating. And maybe that's why it's hit me, Austen, because I've been here as long as I keep telling you I've been here, but it's only twice really that we've seen this kind of shift where it's like, okay, let's get the defibrillator out to this organization and reset the whole dang thing. That's pretty wild that it's only really happened 2 out of my 17 years here. So I
Yeah.
think that's why this feels so different to me as I collect everybody's information and comments and we talk about it. But I got to tell you where I'm coming from. I think it's kind of neat. I think it's kind of cool. And I think it's a good starting place for this regime in particular, and maybe this locker room, and maybe the 2025 Jaguars.
No, for sure. And like, listen, I think this is probably more of a PSA to Hamby than anybody because, hey, man, if people are coming at you, it's going to be okay, right? If people are coming at you, it's going to be all right, Hamby. We don't need to go nuclear on Twitter and bring out our Kendrick Lamar beefs and everything. But look at last season. Look at the last offseason that we went through. And what was the big thing that we brought up on our show was who's calling the plays. And what was the narrative when we first brought that up? From social media. And I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying from majority of social media. It's not a big deal. Who cares who's calling the plays? Like, it's going to be fine. Like, you guys are spending way too much time talking about it. And guess what? We kept talking about it. We kept going down that rabbit hole. And guess what? It wasn't a big deal of who was calling the plays until it was maybe the biggest deal of the season halfway through it.
Yeah.
So that's what, once again, my point where if you listen to the status quo and if you go on social media, maybe, you know what? Maybe who's calling the plays isn't that big a deal, right? Because it'll have some Doug Peterson influence. It'll have some Press Taylor influence. Who really cares? But what did Brent Martineau do? Kept pressing the issue, and then eventually it became a giant deal, and eventually it became the conversation of, is this why the Jaguars aren't doing so well this year?
Yeah, it's a good point. It does. Sooner or later, it comes out. I mean, we're in the now, and sooner or later, you're right. We will find out. Is this a good free agency class? We will then grade them. The tide will turn, or the tide will continue to pile on and say, very good. There's another thought about this. I want to get some of your comments. I see some of them, but I can't really read all of them with the glare. So I'll make sure we get to some of these throughout the show today. I love what everybody comments here on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Twitch and everywhere else. Brent and Austen Show live from the Players Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. You can find it on actionsportsjacks.com. We keep bringing up Gladstone, and it is his time right now, right? I mean, he's the GM. Player procurement happens. That's the GM's role. But I almost feel like everything's Gladstone in my own mind, and I'm wondering if I'm making a little bit of a mistake here, Austin. Because this is supposed to be a coach-centric football franchise right now with Liam Cohen at the center of it. Obviously, we're going to hear collaboration between Tony Vaselli, Cohen, and Gladstone. But what's your thought on that? Is this Gladstone's time? Is everything kind of under the Gladstone umbrella? Or because do we have to go back and say, wait a minute, they said this was coach-centric. Really, everything's under the Cohen umbrella. I don't care who made the final decision. I'm just saying, where are we stockpiling this underneath? Is it all of them? Is this Gladstone right now? Is this Cohen, or should it be Cohen? Because I don't feel like it's.
I mean, no, not at all. And look, listen, and obviously this is a collaboration, and I guarantee you, in one of the very first meetings, Gladstone, Cohen, I'm sure Tony Vaselli all sat down and said, "What do we need? What kind of guys are we looking for?" And this was more strictly of, "Hey, Liam Cohen, what kind of guys do you need? Right? What kind of offense are you going to run? What do you need to make you feel comfortable?" Right? And let's call a spade a spade. I think getting rid of Evan Ingram, who's more of that receiving tight end, not necessarily the best run blocker, that may have been a Cohen decision, right? That may have not even been a Gladstone decision. Maybe Gladstone was like, hey, we had a guy in Tyler Higbee who, he can kind of do everything, but he's a great wide receiving tight end, helped us a lot in LA. Are you sure you don't want Evan Ingram? And maybe Liam Cohen was the guy that said, no, because I want to pound the rock a little more. I need guys that can run block. Maybe that was the conversation. Who knows? But at the end of the day, when you have general manager next to your name, every single transaction that takes place in the offseason, every single draft pick is going to fall on you first, right? When we're doing the draft grades, when we see these players, these draft picks get on the field and the season's over, it's going to be on Gladstone. It's not going to be on Liam Cohen, even though, yes, Liam Cohen has a giant influence. But what we're going to judge Liam Cohen on is Trevor Lawrence, on how this offense looks, on how many wins and losses you have. What we're going to judge Gladstone on is, well, what was free agency like? What was the draft like? Just the way the NFL works.
Yeah, it's very true. You said it. I do wonder how many of these chess piece moves were Cohen influence, and we're just like, oh, it's Gladstone. And that's a little bit of a subconscious thing right now because this is usually the GM's time, to your point. That's who kind of gets the scorecard at the end of the day, and how much of these guys are in rhythm with each other already. I mean, again, there's so many assumptions going on, but we really don't know exactly what's going on. It looks all fine and dandy. It feels okay. But I'm telling you what, it's fast-tracked to get these guys in a flow and a rhythm. I mean, James Gladstone was part of that Rams organization. Liam Cohen was part of that Rams organization. They weren't working like side by side all the time. I mean, that wasn't the case. So they have got to build this as well. And it looks like they're starting to do that. So we will see. Let's take a time out, get our first one in. You mentioned Jarian Jones and a couple of talking points. You're with us for the first hour of the show. We'll get into some of those, Austen, before we let you go here live at the Players Championship. Brent and Austen show on a Wednesday, the eve of the Players. A beautiful day here in Northeast Florida. And, of course, we'll have the latest on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jarian Jones, is he going outside? And while people saw a report from Cameron Wolfe and said, okay, yep, that's the answer, I didn't necessarily say, oh, yeah, that's the definitive answer. Am I wrong? Well, we'll talk about it. Wednesday's schedule right here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. I mean, look at the stuff we have for you. So much original programming on a Wednesday, including the Cup Date at 1, a week with us with Olivia Tassley at 1:30. No gate fees. We'll do softball, baseball show from right here at the Players at 2 o'clock. And then after the game, you can catch more high school action before the Young and Norvell show. And we got a full day here with Players Championship that will include a lot of TV coverage, noon, 5, 6, 10, 11, the special at 11:15. Hang with Action Sports Jacks all week.
It's one of the hot spots in the area.
Welcome you to String Sports Brewery out at the beach. Big crowd on hand tonight. The fans are here.
And now the newest hot spot at the beach is open. String Sports Brewery in Jacks Beach has opened its doors with rave reviews.
We're going to be fans forever.
Cozy up to the bar, grab a seat in the sports-themed restaurant, or grab a seat outside and feel that breeze coming off the beach as the weather warms. Just like the original location in Springfield, try the popular beer menu and come for lunch or dinner too, because the food is fantastic. He's got some exciting news heading into 2025 as well. Christian Kirk. It's where we hosted Jags Report Live in the football season, and the String Sports Brewery staff can't wait to host you. Hey, welcome back here to String Sports Brewery. And if you haven't checked out the new location in Jacks Beach, which many of you have, you got to do it. String Sports Brewery, now with 2 locations in Springfield, and now open in Jacks Beach on Penman Road.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242.
You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing.
Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, you can take 10% off any water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
for the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jags Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game. But with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
I'm ready to show my hand. Ready to take a stand. Wait on a sign above. And I am ready, ready. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game.
For 60 years, the Bob Hayes Invitational Track Meet has provided competitive events, and we're also happy to provide scholarship opportunities too. Join us for the annual Hall of Fame Gala March 13th at the Potter's House and at the James Day Middle School Meet at UNF March 14th.
There they go.
And don't forget the annual Bob Hayes Track and Field Meet at UNF Saturday, March 15th. Get tickets and info at bhitm22.org. For vendors and partnerships, call 904-222-1075.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
What do we have? Oh, Tiger Woods. I kind of forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me that Tiger Woods has Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the first time I've heard NFL players and MMA fighters be compared to professional golfers, but here we are, man. Yeah, like, listen, I will say this, like, I've golfed, right? So it's really hard for me to kind of relate to this topic, though, because, like, when I did it, was I sore? Yeah, but I was also in a golf cart, so, like, that's easier. You're not walking, miles, but someone is carrying your bag. It is all about how you take care of yourself. And listen, I don't know Tiger Woods' daily routine. I do know because I had friends that back in the day, like this is like 10 years ago, that were trainers at Sawgrass, and like Tiger Woods would go in there and get a workout, like before like the event. And they even told me like the dude is just like, in terms of his mindset, in terms of his work ethic, like he was doing things that like they had like NFL players doing, so like I do think is a testament to the offseason training and how seriously Tiger Woods took it. Now, is that a lifestyle? Because I feel like in golf sometimes, and this is probably more of the John Daly effect than anything, it can be a lot of mingling, right? It can be a lot of events and, has some drinks here, has some drinks there. I'm not speaking for every single golfer, but like I'm sure that's prevalent in a lot of areas. So it is hard for me to relate, Brent. It is hard for me to comment on it because I went from football to MMA, which is they're obviously, I think, more physically taxing sports, as opposed to the sport of golf, where, yeah, I think it's physically taxing, but I don't think it's so demanding per match, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get. No, listen, I do think he was pushing the body in this sport, more than people were, and I think everybody knows that. So I think that's really the difference maker for me. Hey, I don't know if we're still glitchy or some of the audio. I know we were trying something in a break, so I appreciate the patience. We kind of have to try on the fly, and maybe it didn't work. So now we've kind of reset back to the normal way. Hamby's playing with it, so appreciate a little bit of patience there. But it looks like we're back, and you can hear me now, which is important. By the way, I've gone through 3 layers today here at the Players, and I know you're freezing cold up there in Montana, Austen, but it was chilly this morning. Like you could have probably had like a little stocking cap on this morning, and it's going to be 82 degrees tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, not tonight, this afternoon. It's a pretty wild weather stretch. That's why you keep seeing me shed clothes. This will be the last of it, though. I won't shed anymore. I promise. Here on the show. Please don't encourage. Brent Martineau here, Austen Lane in Montana. Jason Hamby trying to push the right buttons back in the Action Sports Jags 24/7 Network studios. Let's stay on the Jags for a little bit while we've got you. And you mentioned Jarian Jones. So Cameron Wolf comes out and basically does a report on the Jags, and the report partly says they like what they've seen from Jarian Jones on the outside. And so that answers the question to most people of, all right, does this mean they like him or not like him? Or is he going to have to compete for playing time at the nickel spot, or are they going to move him outside? That was the big question on Monday when we heard the news of Jordan Lewis come down. Well, the answer to that, at least from the Cameron Wolf side of things in this report, I think was interpreted like, oh, yeah, they like him on the outside. Well, then he's your outside guy. I heard the same thing everybody else heard. Like, yeah, they like him on the outside. They think he can play on the outside. Okay. I also didn't hear the part that was definitive to say, okay, then they're done at corner. Like, they don't need another corner. Like, I don't get that sense. Did you interpret all of that the same way, or was different, or am I reading too much into it? I just thought people jumped to, okay, secondary's all set now, or corners are all set now. You got Lewis at the nickel, you got Tyson Campbell at one side, and you got Jarian Jones at the other side. I'm not sure I believe that just yet.
I mean, I'm not sure if I believe that just yet either, but I also think that we are, and listen, I did the same thing when it first got announced. Like, we all assume that Jarian Jones is just now going to be the outside corner. And I think if you dive a little deeper into what the plan was last year for Green Bay, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I wanted to save this for like the wall that says it all, or like paint the picture, but I think, it's important to be like, in terms of, what's the trending topics and everything, what's like the chatter. I think it's important to kind of stay up to date with that as well. And obviously I think a big story right now in this free agency class is bringing in a guy like Jordan Lewis and what's going to happen with Jarian Jones. And I think if you look at last year, and this is the benefit of being in a house full of Packer fans, and then, sharing a hospital with my stepdad last week, who was a giant Packers fan as well. You go down some rabbit holes and you start talking scheme a little bit, because I guess that's the cool thing about like being in Wisconsin, or like having friends that are Packers. Like, they're passionate, man, and they kind of know what they're talking about sometimes. So I'm just going to start by saying this. What I learned in my time in the NFL, one of the big things I learned, and this is a Joe Cullen thing, but it's any position coach that I played for, regardless of what you have at your disposal on your team, you're always going to bring in wrinkles and philosophies of what your mentors taught you, right? So if you like watch Joe Cullen, he's been everywhere. He's been in Cleveland. He's been in Jacksonville. He's in Kansas City now. And they've always had like different schemes per se. Some have been 4-3, like in Jacksonville, what we ran. Some were 3-4, kind of like in Cleveland. But he always kind of sticks to the same principles, the same philosophies. And I think if you look at what Campanelli was coming from with a defensive coordinator and Jeff Hafley, we want to praise the Green Bay Packers for how their defense was last year and how it looked. The funny thing about all that praise, though, is that, and this is the beauty about Matt LaFleur. I like Matt LaFleur for a lot of reasons. One being he's very candid and kind of tells it like it is. Maybe Doug Peterson comes out and says, hey, you guys don't understand this. Matt LaFleur is the opposite. He's going to take you behind the scenes of what he's thinking. He's going to take you behind the scenes in terms of scheme, even when it's on the defensive side of the ball and he's an offensive-minded guy. Well, if you look at what Matt LaFleur said this last offseason about the defense, it's not what they wanted to run. The Green Bay Packers going into the 2024 preseason, it was their philosophy that they were going to run a lot of crazy zone coverages and they were going to run a lot of interchangeable players. So whether it was like safeties coming down playing corners coming down playing, like going up playing safety, they wanted to confuse offenses, especially on first down when you don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass. And that was going to be their whole game for the 2024 season. It was all about crazy zone coverages. It was all about, creating chaos, if you will, for the quarterback. Well, what happens to the Green Bay Packers? It becomes apparent that they can't get home with 4 pass rushers. So they had to call an audible. They had to pivot and go, man, we want to run this defense. We want to run these crazy looks and zone coverage and man coverage and keep offenses guessing. But we can't do it because, we had guys like Rashawn Gary, who, by the way, is a Pro Bowler, but Rashawn Gary wasn't really getting home for a while. We had a defensive line that we were all excited about that we switched to a 4-3, but you know what? They're not really getting home like we want them to. So instead of doing all these crazy zone coverages, we got to start blitzing a little more. And we got to help out our defensive line. So what they envisioned their defense to be to start the season wasn't what it ended up being. And Matt LaFleur was the first guy to say this. So then when I look at Campanelli coming in here, when I look at what the Jaguars have right now with a guy like Jerry Jones, who has shown some progress, obviously, has been one of the brighter spots on that defense last year, playing nickel corner. When you look at a guy like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Savage still on the roster, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct. When you look at Savage, who comes from Green Bay, who played a little bit of everything, when you look at a guy like they just brought in, Eric Murray, a safety who, maybe Jaguars fans feel a certain type of way about in terms of how much more he has left in the tank, but keep in mind, this guy is experienced, has played in a lot of different looks and everything. You have a roster of guys right now that can do a lot of things. Now, you look at the defensive line, right? You have Trayvon Walker. You have Josh Hines-Allen. You're all set there in terms of rushing the passer. Like, if we know one thing right now about this team, we're pretty sure that if they can stay healthy, knock on wood, Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker can get home in the backfield. Now, interior-wise, there are some question marks there, but you have 2 bookends that we're pretty sure about if they can stay healthy. So it's my opinion that Campanelli is going to try to run a little more like what Hafley wanted to do last year in Green Bay, but they didn't have the horses up front to get after the quarterback. So I think we're going to see maybe more interchangeable guys in the secondary. We're going to see a lot more confusion in terms of what they do for coverages on first down and keeping offenses guessing. And hopefully, and once again, maybe the draft, maybe free agency still, but probably more of the draft, they can get that interior pressure where it's like, okay, we got our bookends, we got our interior pressure, we can let the secondary now do their thing and be interchangeable like they wanted to do in Green Bay last year until it all went to hell with their pass rush.
Hamby, I think there are a couple of things that I'm listening to Austen too, and I think we get a little. I think you mentioned at the start, we get a little bit tied into 4-3-3-4, right? We get a little bit tied into where the linebackers are, where the 2 safeties, 2 corners, and Yet even over the last couple of years, we have had so many conversations about, hey, they're going 3 safety looks now. They're utilizing the one of the corners as kind of a safety guy too, like the Darnell Savage. Like, what position is he playing? How many times did we ask that last year going into the season? Okay, what is he? He came here to be a nickel, but is he a safety? Like, how's this working? Antonio Johnson, by the way, his rookie year, not last year, his rookie year, and I know people are down on Antonio Johnson, but he played both spots too. When he even got drafted, it was like, okay, what's he going to be? Where's he play better at? So I do think we have to admit to that position versatility, not only from a skill set standpoint, but also from a defensive standpoint. I think we want to cookie cutter this stuff so much, to Austin's point, that these guys are moving all around at times. And that's the disguise. That's actually the fun part. That can be the disguise to an offense. It's like, okay, identify is that guy going to actually slide into this spot because he's got a skill set to be able to play that. We thought we might see that with Nielsen last year.
Yeah.
Maybe we never really got to see that kind of come to fruition. Maybe we do get it, especially if Austin's right and they can get home with 4 under Campanile.
Well, yeah, we didn't see that because we couldn't even figure out cover 3 against the Colts. In the last 4 minutes of the game, we gave up 2 long touchdowns and basic cover 3 looks, and the corner's dropping down, and he's not even following anybody. So it's like if we couldn't figure that out, of course we weren't going to go to more disguised looks. I think the versatility is one thing. I think it's a great thing. At the same time, we've had an issue in Jacksonville of coverage bust in the last couple of years. So I think the fan base especially is kind of just like, well, before we can really even get to disguise, that's what the great defenses do, and that would be optimal. That'd be the best, but at least can we just get to playing, sound assignment football to where, if a guy's catching a 50-yard bomb, he's got to catch it on top of our heads because, at least we got a guy there. The guys that are in place and are in position. And I think, again, I'll say it one more time, disguising all of this confusion, it would be optimal, but at the same time, I kind of want to see a guy at first play where he's most comfortable before we get there. And that's kind of, I almost feel like that's down the road. Look, we brought in a first-year defensive coordinator, and we thought it was going to be relatively simple. It didn't turn out to be. So I'm not really sure where Campanelli's going to go and how he takes what happened last year, but I just think, look, figure it out base first and then use the versatility to your advantage as the season goes on and as you get further along into this thing.
Austin, one thing you just brought up, I thought, though, too, is you mentioned the veteran guys. And when you do that, here's about another raise the floor. You can raise the floor of the IQ, right? The experience, the ability to do multiple things and see other defenses and schemes, know where to be, the different set of rules that come with all of that stuff. I've never said IQ so much in my life over the last 2 months and doing this business for 25 years. But seriously, it is something I've always referenced back to, like, even 2017. That defense was really good for the Jags, but it was a smart defense. Like, those guys played smart. They had guys like Barry Church, right, who had played. Yeah. He wasn't necessarily an all-pro, but he had played. He knew where to be. He knew what to do. You could expect him to do his job. I think a lot of times in the last few years, especially, the Jags have a couple of guys, quite frankly, they don't trust to do their job the way they need to do their job. So I think they've elevated that part of it. One other thing here, Austin, just I know you did that whole talk about this Green Bay comparison. So where do you think it lands Jarian Jones, though? Like right now, do you feel like he's going to be opposite Campbell, or do you think he's going to be a move piece based on all the things you just said?
I think Jarian Jones is going to be a move piece. I think he can predominantly be on the outside, but I think they're gonna sprinkle him around everywhere. Kind of like, and I'm not saying he's gonna be playing safety and everything, but like I said, I think they have a lot of interchangeable pieces. And yeah, I get the whole philosophy of base defense and just keeping it simple, but like, when I say base defense and when I say like it's talking about first down, right? Because like let's call a spade here. The first down, we say third down's the money down, everything like that. Yeah, it's cool. First down is maybe the second most important down then, right? Because it'll tell you a lot of what's to come, right? Where if you're in a base defense on first down, you're not sure is it going to be run or pass, right? Like it could be 50-50, it's a coin flip. Right? So this is where the importance, I feel like, of what Hafley was trying to do last year in Green Bay comes to key, where if you're interchanging zone coverages, and if you're interchanging what the quarterback doesn't know, if you try to pass, because it still is a pass-first league. I get it. You're seeing a resurgence now of running the football, but it's still a pass-first league for most teams. Well, then if you can go 2nd and 10, if you can get a sack or there's so many things that go into it, but if you can put a team 2nd and 10 with their back against the wall, well, then guess what? Second down, you're out of base defense. Now you're probably a nickel, right? So when we're talking about, I'm saying this base defense, it's primarily on first down. And that's exactly what Matt LaFleur said at the end of the season when he was doing the press conference. It's like, we had a vision of what first down on defense was going to look like, and we couldn't execute that vision because we didn't have the pass rush. So then when I see the personnel right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I look at, well, what do you have to do? This is all predicated off the interior defensive line, gentlemen. All right. And listen, I know we still have a little buyer's remorse, I feel like, with Ryan Nielsen of how that went. And one of the things that he always preached was, secondary first and the defensive line second, works hand in hand. But we have to put our corners in good position. It was all about the corners. And listen, the guy could do a TED talk on how to stop the tush push, and a team should just bring him on for that reason alone. So, like, don't get it twisted. Still, he still has something to offer. I mean, hey, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, bring in Ryan Nielsen to stop the tush push.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at what this team needs in Jacksonville right now and what the most priority is going to be, whether it's the draft or we'll see still in free agency, it's got to be the interior defense. Because if my premonition comes to fruition and we're talking about the Jaguars are going to kind of go with Hafley wanted to do in Green Bay, it starts with interior. Because you have the edge guys. We know you're going to get the edge guys getting after the quarterback. That's not the issue. The issue is going to be, can you get the two guys in the middle rushing the quarterback as well? And if you can, then guess what? Throw the exotic blitzes, Hamby. And I get it. You want to keep it basic, but I think they have the experience. I think they have the guys that can mix it up right away. And if that's the case, make sure you got your interior defensive line. Because if not, it's going to be Green Bay Packers Part 2, where you can't get after the quarterback, and now you got to start sending blitzers, and now you got to start changing it up a little more and keep it very basic in the secondary simply because you can't get home.
Which, of course, is a tale as old as time. Has meant every defense wants to be able to get home with 4. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles were able to do that in the Super Bowl, and that's why many people believe they won the Super Bowl, is because you can really break an offense if you can leave everybody else back to defend the pass and do all the other things that you're supposed to be able to do, principally in a defense, if you can get home with those 4 guys, So will the Jaguars be able to do it? It's interesting you brought that up. You said the word, and I like it. First of all, you called us gentlemen. That was very nice. But you also said this defense will be predicated on that interior rush, because I was actually starting to think, listen to Hamby talk, is like maybe their biggest advancement this year in defense, and I know the interior rush could be better, is really in that safety spot where they had so much miscommunication. I mean, there's so much talk right now about how the secondary played so poorly, and they did. They played poor last year. They gave up so many explosives, and they gave up stuff that just had you scratching your head. But then we also go back, wow, they wouldn't have to cover so much if the interior was better, and look what Josh and Trayvon could do. So I'm kind of going back and forth there as I'm listening to you guys. So I like it. I like that thought, that what you really want to do, though, will be predicated on that rush and that interior rush and that ability. And once again, go back to the big defenses, even just here in Jacksonville, and that interior was really stout. Okay, that's the thing that made it all cook, even though the other guys get a lot of the love and you see the highlights and everything else. The interior really helps it out. Before we let you go, real quick, we're going to get into this probably coming up next. Just, I know you don't have it in front of you, Austin, but
sure. Yeah.
The Texans, the Colts, the Titans versus what the Jags did.
Yeah.
The Jags are my 1. The rest of the AFC South is the 3.
Yeah.
Do you feel like here on a Wednesday, as a new league year is about to begin today, that the Jags got further behind teams in the AFC South? Close the gap in the AFC South? Did somebody step up? Like, just instant reaction without really putting it on a whiteboard, if you will.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Colts got Daniel Jones, so let's just go ahead and get them out of here. Okay, so the Colts are off the table. Sorry, Brent. I mean, can you remind me of some of the Texans' moves again?
Well,
what do they all get?
The Texans have basically shed their entire offensive line.
Yeah, like they let go of Tunsil.
But they bring in like Braxton Berrios, and they brought in a lot of defenders, especially in the secondary. They added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So just like he's got it all.
Hamby, my man.
They made a lot of moves, but they made like a lot of like 1 to 2 year kind of moves. Interesting. They actually did.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of did a little bit what the Jags did, but they did even maybe more what the Washington Commanders did last year in that John Shipley conversation. And then obviously they bring in Kirk, too. So
yep. For nothing, essentially, so, right? I mean,
like Houston's a team to beat. We sit here 2 days, again, going into the league year here in the middle of March. We still feel like they're the team to beat, I guess, is the moral of the story, right?
Yeah. So, okay, so where it sits, yeah, I mean, Tennessee, obviously, I think they're kind of stocking up for a quarterback, right? So we'll see how that plays out. We'll have a better idea once the draft shakes out. I think when you talk about Houston, yeah, I mean, they're still the team to try to catch a little bit. Obviously, losing Tank Dell is going to be huge, but they replace him with Christian Kirk, who, let's be honest here, it isn't on Tank Dell's level, I feel like, but, it can be a nice Band-Aid, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye, too, if they're going to restructure Christian Kirk's deal. Because if that's the case, then that's going to hurt even more, right? Because you saw, and this is, I think, me and Hamby talked about this a little bit, Brent, when you were gone, but the Texans seem to be like the masters of trying to like renegotiate contracts for their benefit. You saw it with Stephon Diggs, who I guess you can say took a chance on himself and unfortunately tears his ACL, and now is going to miss out on a lot of money because he went from a 3-year deal to renegotiating to a 1-year prove-it deal, and he's going to have a lot more to prove now if he wants to get more money going forward. So the Texans are still the team to catch, I believe, and it's going to break my heart if Christian Kirk restructures.
All right. Hopefully nobody catches you on the slopes on the snowboard. Stay safe out there. Have
Real
some
quick.
fun. And what you got, Andy?
Austin, who's your TPC winner? You got to get it in today.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a great – yeah, appreciate you, man. That's a great question.
Yeah, way to put him on the spot.
There's only one guy that
right?
you can't pick. Tiger's not playing. Tiger's not playing. Let's remember.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Man, because usually I have to go like, who's going to be the guy that if you look at his picture, it's going to be like at the lemon bar.
How about the Jason Day outfits? Can you sign up for that?
I mean, come on, man. What are you talking about? Go ahead and give me who's the dude from Norway?
Ludwig?
Victor something?
Victor Hovland.
Oh, Victor Hovland.
Victor Hovland. Yeah, that. Right. Yeah, is he playing?
Yes, he's playing.
Hovland, book it right now. Put it in stone.
Good deal. All right,
go to your bookies right now. Cash it.
Victor Hovland is your winner. All right, man. Have a good day out there, and really the rest of the week we'll have you covered. We'll see you back in Jacksonville next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take it easy.
All right. Hey, Hamby.
Yes.
I'm glad he's off now. Hovland's been playing terrible. Oh, wait, he's still on. Hang on. Let's take it down. We will have our picks a little bit later. There is a golf, there's an interesting golf story that really spreads out to other sports. And did you see the whole Colin Morikawa stuff about not meet with the media after Sunday when he didn't win the event? And I wonder how people feel about that. I'm always interested how we feel in the media versus how the fans feel about things like that. And we've seen other experiences. We've talked about this in the past. Heck, we just talked about it a year ago when Rory blew the major tournament, and lost to DeChambeau. I think that was what was that? The U.S. Open? I think it was the U.S. Open. And he didn't talk after. And so we have had this story, but I was thinking of something relative to some other sports, the big ones and then the not so big ones. And I wanted to get just some people thinking about it. And if anybody's got any thoughts on that, we'll have it part of the show. We obviously will go the AFC South. We're going to break that down. Daniel Griffiths writes a new article. By the way, take a deep dive. Patrick Mekari, one of the newest members and maybe the most significant one of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We will go there, and you can read all about it, by the way, at actionsportsjacks.com. Brent and Austen Show. Jason Hamby back in the studios. We get you until 1 o'clock, live from the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness. The most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC, we are professional grade.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
Instant in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants.
We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter.
Save $1,000 or more when you bundle a Connecticut Premier Softener with a Connecticut K5 drinking water system. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team, like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter First Coast on your team.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Oh, you snuck this in, huh? You didn't save this for like no gate fees.
Bad move?
It's pretty cool, but I don't really like talking about it. I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but I like talking about it on this thing. Yeah.
You know, you're a pitcher. So Kaylee did that yesterday. There are a couple of things going through my mind. That's a good teaser for no gate fees, by the way. We will
have one of the top pitchers in Northeast Florida on the show today. It won't be Kaylee. It is Leah Stevens heading to play for the Florida Gators. She plays for Matanzas. So we have no gate fees at 2 o'clock. Baseball, softball, committed to the uncommitted, different topics along the way on the show. And one of the topics actually going to is junior college baseball, softball, sports in general. There are some new rules and things that are going down in the junior college world. And I got to be honest with you, I've just been opened up to that junior college thing because Kaylee's in it now, more so than ever before. You hear, you listen to people. But now when you live it, it's a different thing, right? And she's absolutely having the time of her life. She loves it. But the landscape of college sports, how junior college plays into it, might be one of the things that we discuss today on No Gate Fees, 2 o'clock, actionsportshacks.com. Everywhere you find the network. We'll even be on social media with that show as well, so you can be a part of it. Kind of a youth sports show. We highlight local baseball and softball. We'll have our high five power polls and everything else. So that part is coming up at 2 o'clock today until 3 o'clock. It replays at 6 o'clock tonight on the network, and also tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and even a couple of times over the weekend. But Hamby, you were a pitcher, and it's really weird. Yesterday, there's two things that's really weird right now about like watching Kaylee. She's really pitching well, and that's not that different. She's pitched pretty well for a while now, but she doesn't like strike. She doesn't overpower people. So like she doesn't strike a lot of people out, and like she doesn't flirt with this kind of stuff. Perfect games. Like there are a lot of pitchers in the area, especially at the high school level or even in college, that they're just so overpowering that like you can almost expect something like this from time to time. So it's been really weird. She took one to the 7th inning earlier this year, and then this one yesterday, but it only goes 5 innings because they run ruled the team. And I mean, I don't remember that ever happening in high school. Like she might have, I think she had a no-hitter going last year in the district championship game pretty deep. I was like, oh, this is something. And I was like, that was a no-hitter, different than a perfect game, but still pretty dang good. And I was like, wow. But she didn't really flirt with that stuff. And here we've seen it twice in her freshman year in college. Really weird to see it. But the defense is really good. She had good defense in high school now too, but defense is really good at the collegiate level. Pitch calling, just the chess match at the college level is really, really fun to watch. And that wasn't just Kaylee. Now, I don't know if you saw the stat I said, and you'll be impressed by this. The final, there was a doubleheader. The last 33 batters that we faced, that Daytona State faced, 3 different pitchers were set down in order.
Golly,
so it wasn't
the
just
final
Kaylee's 15 outs. It was the final 18 outs of the first game were set down in order. With 3 different pitchers combined. I mean, that's and by the way, this team had just beat like a couple weeks ago, beat the number 4 ranked team in the country. So, and they're like, okay, I think, if you look at them record-wise, but just a good day of pitching. The other thing is this, I genuinely, how do you look at it? Because I was like, yeah, okay, cool. 5 innings, like that's not like the real deal though.
No.
You know, because I was like, oh, you got to go 7. And I'm thinking that the whole time. Now, the cool part is she thought it was awesome. Everybody else thinks it's great. That's great. That's awesome. Like, and you should. And it's still a cool feat. But I was wondering how you're like, I'm like, all right, yeah, but it's 5 innings. Like, does that count? Like, the people count that? Like in Major League Baseball, if you pitch like a perfect game in a rain-shortened 6-inning game,
you're not getting
count it as a perfect game. Would it go down as?
You're not going in the record books. No.
You don't in baseball?
I mean, I would be shocked. Let me look it up, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you do. But and honestly, like that's why I was like, okay. I was even like, I told Steph yesterday, I was like, well, get somebody else in. We're up like 9-0 at the time. So the games, if you were leading by 8 runs after 5, you take them out. And so, I'm sorry, the game's over after 5. And so I was kind of like, you know what, it's good. Get somebody else in who hasn't pitched as much or something like that. I always say that to Steph. And I was like, I'm thinking about what the coach is going to do because you got a perfect game going on. But obviously they valued it a lot to have the perfect game. And it's awesome. Like that's cool stuff. But
this says you only get it if you go 9 in Major League Baseball.
So you only get it if you go 9. Okay. See, like I equate this kind of thing to playing golf. Like if I go shoot a 78 today, which would be a good score, like a really good score for me, especially here I'm not shooting 78. But if I go shoot a 78 and I come back, I get back in the clubhouse and go have a drink, and somebody's like, "Hey, what'd you shoot?" 78. You know what they don't ask you? They don't ask you what tees did you play from.
Right.
Like you could play from the whites, the blues, the grays. Like they don't ask. Think about you never get asked that question. And so I was like, you know what? It's kind of cool. You say, hey, perfect game. Nobody's asking, was it 5 innings, 7 innings, 9 innings, 12 innings?
Nope.
You know, it's just like,
you do a perfect game.
That's cool. So that was a fun moment. Fun moment. So that was good stuff from Kaylee. Thanks for sharing. She will like that. You ever throw a perfect game? No hitter?
No.
Little league? Anything?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess not. I guess I probably would have remembered it, but in high school I was pretty much strictly out of the pen. So I know I threw a couple one-hitters.
So many like travel ball games. You know, travel ball games, so many end at like 3 innings, like if you're really killing the team, you know, because you'll get some of those mismatches. Like that one doesn't count if it's 3 innings, you know. That's
Delphonic.
I would think that you got to go like 5, bro.
Delphonic says, can Brent get a hit off Hamby in 3 at-bats? I say yes. No shot. You only get 3?
Well, who said yes?
Delphonic.
I get 3 at-bats to get
off
a hit.
Of me? You're not getting a hit in 3 ABs.
No shot.
No, he says yes. I'm saying no shot.
Delphonic, you're absolutely right.
Bro, come on.
If I really want to, Delphonic, I'm still right now the best bunter in Northeast Florida. Like I haven't played in 20-something years. So if I really want to lay down a hit, I'll just bunt one, all right?
Hey,
so,
I fill my PFPs pretty well.
I'll do that. You want to field this one, drop a hat right down that third baseline. I'll make it so where you can't even field it. It's not going to matter. Even at 47, I'll beat that sucker out. But listen, I would say I wouldn't bet on me in that. Not 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't swing bat. I don't swung a bat in a long time now. But yeah, I wouldn't bet on me to do that. But you probably throw like right in a good range for me. What did you top? You were kind of a mid-80s guy, right?
I was like a 80, 81 on a good day. I just sunk and cut it.
Oh, yeah.
I was down under.
But
so
were you throwing junk all the time?
Yeah, I
was
throwing
junk all the time or just dropping down.
I was this slot always. Hide the ball.
Yeah.
Sink it.
Okay. That's tricky now. That's tricky. And I'm a lefty, right? So
you're gonna roll over that baby.
Lefties because that kind of comes into us. Yeah, I got to stay inside the baseball.
Yeah.
Stay inside it.
I could throw 3 pitches, so you're gonna roll over quite a few times.
I actually think I think it's easier to stay inside the baseball on those guys. I think the trickier one is when that dude that has that sink that runs away. And I don't know if you had some of that.
Yeah.
But like that guy coming sidearm, righty sidearm guy. Now, the lefty sidearm guy for a lefty is like almost impossible.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no
like,
shot.
Cow, get out of here.
Right.
Pitch hit for me right now. But the righty guy is like, you know, that sink, it's kind of like, you got a little tail to it, almost like a 2-seam run from down there. Now, that's tricky stuff because that's dropping out. Now you got to play geometry, hit it the other way, you know, lift it, all those things. But yeah, Hey, Delphonic, I like you a lot, and you know what? I'm going to side with you. You're right. You bet your ass I'd get a hit off him.
I'll give you 10. You'd have to have like 15 or 20 to pull into the
10.
outfield.
Oh gosh, no! Now stop,
Brent. When's the last time you saw live pitching? I know that what you've done.
That doesn't matter.
Brent.
That doesn't matter.
You're gonna draw a walk before you get a hit.
I did have a pretty good eye, but you're a strike thrower. You're not going to walk me. You're a strike thrower. You're not going to walk me. We got to set this up. You know, we've never even done. I still can't believe we haven't gone down to like D-bats with Rasheed Mathis down there, like World Golf Village. He owns that one, and we've said we're going to go down there and have some fun with it. And we've said on the radio side because he used to be on with us, Mathis on Mondays, and we just haven't done it. We got to get down there. I got to call him. Although problem with Rasheed is every time you try to call him, he doesn't answer for like 3 weeks. That guy is like. He's the worst texter of all time. Like he just disappears. But we got to connect with Rasheed. Speaking of Jags, Ross Matisic out here. Also Cam Little. Cam Little, man, he's so much fun. That guy's high energy. He's just a lot of fun to be around. Already, you know, I don't remember a guy walking in to the Jags where you were just like, I just like got that feeling, like the energy, the character, any of that. It's what's funny is Mac has some of this. Like that's Mac Jones was like that. But you didn't see it. You didn't know it because he's the quarterback and he's supposed to be this way and that. And then you kind of, you're around it a little bit more. Maybe he opens up a little bit more. I think when he started to play and some of the stuff that you saw on the podium, I think you saw it with Mac. But I'm telling you, Cam Little he's a cool cat. He's really a fun guy. And by the way, he's probably really the first guy that I've covered. And even though you know this from an age separation standpoint, like I said, like I could actually be Trevor Lawrence's dad age-wise, but he's the first person where I've really looked at like, wow, I am old enough to be like Cam Little. Because Cam Little looks like he's 12 too.
Yeah.
He looks like he's so young, and he is young. He just turned 21 during the season. But I think he's the first guy in my career where I'm like, I don't feel like old necessarily. It's just that legitimately he's like my kid's age. I mean, he's a year older than Ty and Kaylee. And that is probably the first guy that's entered the NFL in that age group.
You're hitting a new echelon there, Brent.
And he totally comes off like it, too. There are so many guys like Trevor, you would sit there and be like, oh, he's 24, 25 years old. He feels like he's 35, Like these guys always feel older. And I say this with this is a lot of love for Cam. Like, he does not feel older than 21 most of the time. Like, he really doesn't. And which is a great thing, too. But really, he's a fun guy. It's just the energy that you have seeing him at 8:30 in the morning over here hanging out. Him and Ross Madison, man, they love golf. Logan Cook loves golf. A lot of the Jags love golf. So we'll see these guys around here throughout the day at TPC Sawgrass. All right, that was 20 minutes of not a lot. How about we get back into it on the Brent Martineau show?
Titans just signed Blake Hance.
Did they really?
Let's talk about that for 20 minutes.
I want you to throw those. No, I'm not talking about Blake Hance. I want you to throw back the full screens you had up there.
One.
Not that one. Yeah, keep that one up the whole show. If my shot goes out, you can just put that one up over me.
Okay.
You can have Kaylee's perfect game up. But so I want to go through the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts and what they've done, and appreciate you illustrating this. I don't want to sleep on anybody in the division, and I don't want this to come across as, well, the Jags have done this. These are isolated conversations for now. And then we'll get into, okay, have the Jags closed the gap? Are they further apart? Like, where do they sit in the division? But I look at what the Titans are doing right now, and it certainly does look like they're setting the table to get a new quarterback, right? But man, oh man, this is not impressive. Does anything do anything for you? Like, the Titans are already just like, okay. And then they go give Dan Moore 4 years and $82 million. And it kind of feels like the Calvin Ridley deal from last year. They seem like big time overspenders in the last couple of free agency deals with the Moore one and the Ridley one.
And Snead.
Oh, and Snead. Now listen, I thought Snead was a nice player, though. Like, I thought that was a pretty good get, but they did pay him quite a bit. Wasn't he like $20 million or $19 million a year?
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
So, I mean, do you think they're obviously positioning for that number one pick? They can get a lot better there, but are they going to threaten the AFC South with these kind of moves and take a big jump, especially if they have a rookie quarterback? I wouldn't think so, right? They're a bottom feeder in the South.
No, I think, look, you go up and down. They brought back Sebastian Joseph Day, which is not going to feel like an addition, obviously, because they re-signed him. They go get Dan Moore, like you said, but they lost Harold Landry, who was one of their better pass rushers, and they let him walk. And then they go get Cody Barnett, who's like, not going to really do anything for you at linebacker, and that's it. That's really, what holes did they really address? Of course, they got Moore, who you would assume is going to be a big piece for them on their line for the next 4 years, but how what are they going to do in the run game? What are they going to do, outside of Calvin Ridley?
I don't know what impact they're making.
I think I just.
Did I shut you up?
I just choked.
You all right?
myself.
You gonna make it over there?
I'm good.
You having a moment? Get you off screen so you can go like save yourself.
Yeah, I'm good now. I'm
I
good.
need to call 911 or something.
I'm good. Let's get to the freaking Colts because they didn't do anything either on the offensive side of the ball, but they just decided we're going to go all in on the secondary.
Listen, I've been there before, man. I got allergies all the time. I mean, you got to sneeze sometimes. It's what happens when you talk for a few hours a day. You never know what's going to happen. So the Colts, this is what they do. Who is that guy there? Ashton Doolin.
He's been there. He's been there.
Yeah, he's been. But here's the deal. They actually might have made the most splashy plays with their secondary.
Yeah.
Bynum and Ward.
That's
and
big
then
time.
obviously Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones, and that gets a lot of attention. But the Bynum Ward thing to solidify their secondary, I think is pretty significant.
It is. I mean, there were two significant guys that, we remember the game from last year, obviously with BTJ, just because he gave us the worst picture of the year for the Jags was Saquon jumping backwards over Jarian. The best picture for the Jags was BTJ running down the sideline while a Colts defender tries to go Superman and doesn't even come anywhere close. So I guess the Colts were like, yeah, that can't happen for the next 10 years. At least for the next 4, we've got to go get Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, shore up the secondary. At the same time, Austen, the only move he's going to be worried about is Daniel Jones. If I'm the Colts fan, I'm worried about their offensive line because Ryan Kelly, he's the aging center, but a very good piece. He walks, and their right guard walks. His name's escaping me as well, but I think he got Fries. That was the guy that a lot of Jags fans wanted, the right guard.
Yeah, Will Freeze. Yeah.
Yep, he goes and gets, I think, $80 million. So that's two of their interior that they don't have right now. And we're about to get into Houston, but we've talked about all that they've lost on the offensive line. To me, if I'm Gladstone, I get you got to worry about your roster, how you can improve. But I think I might be licking my chops looking at some of these offensive lines, and I'm like, man, if I could just upgrade a little bit more with the interior, we might be able to just have freaking field days in the backfield against these units.
Yeah, I mean, so that's where I'm going to get to here. But let me just finish off with Houston, and you showed Houston. But when we comp, like, where else the Jags, have they closed the gap or have other teams taken a step? Now, Texans, man, signed a bunch of guys. I don't even know how many this is. It looks like a dozen to me at face value. Some of their own guys like Agumbawale, who, by the way, has had a nice career in Houston ever since he did leave Jacksonville. I think they get some edge with Gardner Johnson. Obviously, the upgrade with Christian Kirk, I think, is a good one. And you've got some names in Barnett there that could also help out on the defensive side of things. So, I mean, they've added a little bit everywhere, but it was a subtraction of the offensive line that is the headliner, really, for the Houston Texans. So you just said that about Indy a little bit, and their quarterback situation so unknown. It feels like Indy is hanging on with Ballard and also Coach. What's his name? And then Houston just is like, we're remaking our offensive line. They're going to spend all their picks, I would think, up front. And then Tennessee is trying to restart and reboot this thing, but not with like super splashy guys. It seems like they spent or overspent on the offensive lineman. And then Calvin Ridley, again, is a guy they spent big last year, but he's going into age 32 year if he's one of your biggest threats. So in a weird way, the Jags, who have band-aided up some things, I wouldn't say also splashed in a major way. The whole division kind of just did a little bit of, all right, fill this hole, not going to go $100 million signing, not going to go biggest name signing necessarily. Yet the Jags' strengths might actually close the gap a little bit based on what Houston specifically did on their offensive line until we know what they will have to fix it. And then the other two teams are just quarterback mysteries. So it does seem like it could simply be Jags and Houston once again. Now, Indianapolis is not going to be a bad team. It's just all going to depend on who they have at quarterback and how that quarterback plays, because the roster is certainly good enough to compete. Steichen, by the way, is the head coach, and I just feel like they're holding on. Has a little bit of a Marone Caldwell from 2020 feel to it in Indianapolis, where you're like, okay, we're going to try it one more year, right? That doesn't usually work, and especially when your quarterback situation is unknown. So Indy doesn't scare me. The Tennessee Titans should be the bottom of the South. It's all about Houston being the best team. I do think because of the Kirk addition and the subtraction here, there's still an edge there where they probably got a little bit better. But I think everybody is talking about that offensive front where you don't have to face Tunsil and you don't have to face some of these guys until you see what you have to face. It feels like let's go eat on defense here in Jacksonville and maybe across the rest of the AFC South when you play the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I think Laramie Tunsil trading him is an underrated move. That obviously we've been all in on the Jags and everybody's kind of locked in on their specific teams. But holy cow, like just the fact of the whole narrative surrounding the Texans was they're not doing anything to protect C.J. Stroud, and you can see it. It's almost all over his face. He's got happy feet in the pocket. Why was he so good his rookie year and take 3 steps back his sophomore year? Is because he wasn't comfortable. You could see it. You could see it against Jacksonville, where he's getting rid of the ball too soon, or he's holding it onto it too long, or he's feeling heat when there is none, just because he's used to there being some. And then I feel like anytime that's the case, it should almost be automatic that you cannot trade your best offensive lineman. Now, you can debate how good Tunsil still is, and maybe they think that his best is, but he is their best guy as of right now out of their 5. And they give him away, especially at the left tackle spot. Somebody, obviously, the most important of the 5. I don't get it. Then they go trade Kenyon Green, so they don't have their left tackle, their left guard, or their right guard next year. Now, Texans fans would tell you that their guards were both terrible. That's what they would say. Kenyon Green at left and Shaq Mason at right. Still, you got 40%. You're returning 40% of your offensive line next year, and really 20% with the injuries. Like that's a lot of guys. First of all, to get right, then to mesh together and to be on the same page with C.J. Stroud. Again, I'm looking at up and down the Jaguars roster, and I'm like, any bit of pressure I can get. I mean, look, we almost beat Houston twice this year and should have beat them both times. And with no interior pass rush, I'm thinking if I can get some and lock some things up and actually, play a full 60-minute game, there's no reason why we shouldn't own them next year.
Well, here's the deal. I do think there's an element that you got to consider. That first of all, they're going to reboot it. They're going to rebuild it a little bit. So who do they get? Much like anything where you think the Jags have some downside and holes and other things, who are they going to get to fill in the draft? So we do have to wait for that to play out. But there were 2 years ago, we went into the season thinking the Houston Texans were going to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League. They were playing a rookie quarterback, and specifically their offensive line was in a lot of trouble. I believe that 3rd game or 4th game of the year, whatever they played the Jags and they beat them with all the special team stuff, they were rolling out basically a second-team offensive line in that game. That's what they were playing with at the time. They were playing with like 8 different guys. They couldn't settle on it. And you know what? Had themselves a hell of a year out of nowhere. So I don't think we should just assume they're going to be bad. I don't think they've been anywhere near what they thought they could be. You're right about Tunsil, because it's not just that they lost their best lineman. He's one of the best players in the National Football League over the last 5 to 10 years on the offensive line. So, yeah, they take a major step back. I also think the confidence, the swag of C.J. Stroud is certainly not where it was coming out of 2023. And you do have an offensive coordinator that's new. That could be great, but that also could be a new language, a new probably a little bit of a honeymoon period to figure out, or it could just not work. So there are a lot of questions now Houston has opened up. Offensive line, specifically, offensive coordinator, and how does C.J. Stroud respond to all of it, I think is a big question mark. Outside of that, they have a good football team. They have a lot of good players, but the trenches did get worse right now during this period, and the Jags should be able to take advantage of it. So the bottom line is, for me here, if you look at where the Jags have, I'm not going to sit here and homer up on this one and say, well, hey, the Jags, look at what they did in free agency. They are so much better. Look at that. They took a big leap. We have been able to come out of this session this week, going into the new league year, multiple times in the last decade plus and say, hey, look what the Jags just added. Oh, they just got better than everybody else. Or we could have that debate. I'm not sitting here having that debate. Right. I do think even without making splash plays and maybe that non-sexy free agency class, they didn't really lose any ground either to me. I think they're still kind of where they're at, and the draft is going to be a big determining factor of what this looks like. And then the upgrade on the coaching staff and everywhere else is going to be a determining factor. And then health and getting the best out of these players will be the ultimate factor on Sundays this fall. So to me, the division hasn't changed in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
It's the Houston Texans. I still think the Jags and the Colts are right there, and they've got to figure out who the heck they are. Colts from a quarterback standpoint, really the Jags from a team standpoint. And then I think Tennessee is, with some distance, sitting there in the basement of the AFC South going into 2025. So my expectation or even conversation hasn't really changed when it comes to the Jags and the rest of this division. I think you can get it. Like, I really think you can get it in 2025. You'll have to have things go your way. Some of these moves will have to work. You obviously got to coach it and play it better. But I think they are squarely in the mix to be able to have a season to win the division in 2025. I'm not predicting it. I just don't think that's that far-fetched based off everybody else in the division and what they're doing. It seems pretty open. I wouldn't say wide open. I do think clearly Houston's the team to beat, but not by some crazy measure. Is really what I'm getting at. So that brings up now the draft. Really, it's the draft is the next thing. When we say this May 1st or April, whatever, how do we feel about it? That will be an interesting part of this for me, is how do you go into the season thinking about it? And then you'll start asking this question. Can you coach them better than they can? And can you out quarterback them?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time in 2022 where I was like, oh, give me those guys. Give me our guys here in Jacksonville. Doug and Trevor, I'll take them over anybody in the AFC South. And I'll take them for years to come. Well, that didn't really materialize on the back end of 2023. And now we're kind of back wondering, can you get back there to say, hey, we can beat you with Liam Cohen, D'Amico Ryans, and we can beat you with Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. Because at the end of the day, if you want to own the division, I think you got to be able to do those things along with a good football team that's going to beat the Houston Texans. Let's take a time out. Brent and Austen Show on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 Network. I've been telling you about this golf pool. You got to get in today, by the way. It's called ProGolfPool.com. And the reason I've been telling you about it is not really to encourage you to get involved in the majors and the Players' Championship. You can do that with whatever you want. But this one actually highlights and gives back to some different organizations and it's a fundraiser for ProjectSaviorOutdoors.org, 5buckets.org as well. So if you want to look those up, ProjectSaviorOutdoors.org, 5buckets.org. It's pretty minimal price to get in for the entire year, so you can have some fun with all the golf majors and the Players' Championship. And again, a lot of the proceeds going to charity. And you can simply email cmullet.inc@gmail.com. That's Chad at cmullet.inc@gmail.com. But you got to get in today now. By the end of today, you got to send it in. And any questions, definitely hit that email. If you really couldn't understand what I said about the email, you can go back to yesterday's show in the chat. I put the email address and the website if you want to get in the game for who's going to win the Players' Championship, the Masters, the U.S. Open, the PGA Championship, and the Open Championship as well, and it goes to a good cause. We have a lot of Players' Championship coverage. It starts actually in just a bit at noon on CBS 47. We'll be in the 5 o'clock show, the 6 o'clock show, 650 Sports right here from the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass on Fox 30, and then later tonight at 10 o'clock and 11:15. We go 20 minutes each and every weeknight from the Players' Championship, and you can watch it at actionsportsjacks.com. Just part of the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jags Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242.
You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing.
Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, you can take 10% off any water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579. Action Sports Jax is the biggest brand in Jacksonville, and we're excited to add another partnership for this team's biggest season yet. Action Sports Jax 24/7 is now the official streaming network of the Jacksonville Sharks for their 15th season.
The Jacksonville Sharks are your champions.
It's the place we party in football season with Jaguars All Access.
Welcome to Spring Sports Brewery, everybody. Say hello to our guest tonight. That is Trevor Lawrence.
You can bring your party or event to Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield any day and any time. Rehearsal dinners, corporate events, birthdays. Here at Strings, you can enjoy the inside area and the outside area. Good for any weather, good for any occasion. Watch the games, play the games, shoot some hoops. Beer? Yeah, they have that. Plenty of choices. And sure, this is a brewery, but Strings is also a restaurant, and the food is fantastic. A full menu made from scratch meals. And if you need String Sports Brewery to help with a party at your place, they cater too. Family, beer, food, sports. Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Joey Bosa signing with the Bills. I'll tell you what, people like, this is my whiteboard narrative stuff, or at least breaking news stuff, or I know people are all over Yardline Yoda. I think it's like an offer. But I swear I saw a report a couple of days ago on social media that he was like on his way to San Francisco to sign with his brother. And then he ends up in Buffalo. So I don't know if it was just somebody out there putting it. I can't remember where it came from. But it just it made sense, right? The whole Bosa thing, but turns out going to Buffalo, and that makes sense too. I think that's an interesting signing, actually, Joey Bosa. I wonder, does he have something left? If he can stay healthy, how good can he be? That's a nice risk, I think, for Buffalo to take. They are in such a good position. They are the team to me that's in a position now where like New England used to be in, obviously Indianapolis. I never even fully got this sense with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, but it probably was like this. I get the sense now with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City for sure. But I really am starting to get this in Buffalo because of Josh Allen, that you can go try some stuff. I think Lamar and Baltimore, same thing. Like you can go try something, and it seems like there's a lot of upside there. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, it's like not going to blow up in your face to the point where your season's over. Like where if you go add like Bosa and really plan on him to be a huge part of it for maybe it's the Jags or another team, you're like, oh, dang, well, if that didn't work, then it really didn't work. And we could be screwed. But the quarterback is the point here that those guys, Josh Allen has put himself in an echelon of quarterback play in the NFL where now you can do almost anything around him and he's still giving you that chance. And I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, we want to get the Jags to that point, and we're just not there with Trevor and with the Jags. That might be Trevor, that might be the Jags. Man, would it be nice to get to that point. But I was thinking this today. It is nice to get to this point in Jacksonville, too. If you start to look around the league, right, you see Sam Darnold go to Seattle. You see Geno Smith go to the Raiders. They look like they're trying to find their guy. They believe in that guy. What are the Giants going to do? The Jets go to get Justin Fields. What's Pittsburgh going to do? Good organization, big move with Metcalf, but also what are they going to do at quarterback? What are the Vikings going to do? Have a lot of good players coming off a nice year. They're going to lean J.J. McCarthy. It looks that way. It is nice, in my opinion, here in Jacksonville, where you have been a part of those conversations pre-2021 for a lot of those years. To say, what are you going to – that you're not doing that. Mm-hmm. And I understand in Jacksonville we ask the next question is, how good is he? When are we going to see the best of? All those things. Fair. That's not my point. The nice thing is in Jacksonville is we're not asking who it is. We're not going to go Band-Aid that up. We're not going to say, all right, is Cam Ward going to really be good? Shedeur Sanders going to be really good? Maybe it's better to go get Aaron Rodgers for a year. Maybe it's better to get Sam Darnold now at 27. Like, we're not asking those questions. Those are dangerous questions to be asking. Look inside the division. Will Levis or go get one of these guys? Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. No, seriously, like I know people laugh at it, but like we're not removed from that very long ago. Like this has been a constant issue in Jacksonville to try to figure that out, Hamby. And I think sometimes it's okay, even though a lot of things haven't gone great, to sit here and say, man, at least that part's cool. Like they don't answer that piece. They do not have to answer that piece right now because they're fully convicted and they're fully invested in in that guy and Trevor Lawrence. But I think there's full belief still in him in a lot of ways that he can bring this organization where it should be year after year and hopefully bring them to the promised land. And then again, those questions can be separate than how good can he be? Can he be elite? Can he be a top 5 guy? Can he be a top 3 guy? Can he be an MVP guy? We can still have all those questions. Those questions exist. But I think the first set of questions are checkmarked. And I think don't take it for granted because that's a big deal. That's a big deal in your roster build. That's a big deal when you're making a change this offseason like we just made in Jacksonville to go bring in a Gladstone and a Cohen and make it really a job that's coveted because of that. And I want to work with that. And I can get the most out of that. So I think we just have to remind ourselves once in a while. And all this movement on the quarterback front here this time of year always checks me into that reality where it's like, I'm glad we got the guy we got here in Jacksonville, and I don't give a damn if they just went 4-13. I'm still glad that the Jags have Trevor Lawrence.
Oh yeah, Brent. If you're asking me if I'm allowed to sit back a little bit and enjoy the fact that the Colts are choosing between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, yeah, I'm gonna laugh at it because it's laughable. That first of all, the fact that I get to laugh at another team and take the eyes off my own, that's a good thing. And you're picking between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones as your starting quarterback when you have the rest of the roster is pretty good. That's a terrible place to be. And so, yes, any opportunity I get to look down my nose at another organization, why not? Why not? I'm going to take that. And you look at the Titans, they're not much better. They're choosing between who? Will Levis and whoever they want to take first overall. And this is the fun thing is it's never fun before draft season. It wasn't fun as a Colts or Titans fan or Texans fan 4 years ago this time of year when you knew that in a couple months Trevor Lawrence was going to be the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars because they were going to take him number 1 overall. We don't feel the same. I'm not shaking in my boots one bit if Cam Ward is the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Now, could he very easily make me eat my words? Sure. The guy's got a lot of talent. But it's not even close to the way they thought, well, we were about to get Trevor. Do your worst. Go get Cam Ward. So what? We'd almost be more scared if they took Abdul Carter and found a way to go get somebody else at quarterback. Because Abdul Carter scares me coming off the edge more than Cam Ward does at the quarterback position. He doesn't scare me a bit. And Shador definitely doesn't. So it's nice to be we know at worst we have the second best quarterback in the division, and 3 and 4 are legitimately not even close. Obviously, I would argue that we're T1 for best quarterback, and this year will pretty much decide it. Based off of the way that C.J. Stroud played last year and Trevor went healthy. This is a nice conversation, Brent. I'm enjoying this one.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's worthy of having one. One quick note I will say about Tennessee, and I'm not huge on this quarterback class. I have my question marks. I think we all should. It's okay to be skeptical. But I also wasn't sitting there saying Jaden Daniels is going to be what he was last year.
That's true.
So I do think when you have the opportunity to take a guy, if you had told me Tennessee took Jaden Daniels last year, I would have been like, oh, man. Well, now people in the NFC East are like, oh, man, right? So, I do think when you have a chance to take a guy, you don't necessarily know how the fit is, how good he's going to be. So I can't sit here and tell you that Sanders and Ward are going to be bad. They don't scare me, if I'm being honest, but I don't think they're going to necessarily be bad. It's just you kind of wonder how great they're going to be. And that's why it's important right now for C.J. Stroud in Houston, but more specifically Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, to really start, raising the level of play and keep the separation going, keep the gap growing with the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, with the quarterbacks of the Tennessee Titans, and then hopefully overcome the quarterback of the Houston Texans. So, that's a significant piece of this. If you look at teams that have sustained winning, they have the edge there, a la Kansas City, a la the New England Patriots, Indianapolis Colts in this division before. You've got to have that guy. Now, the AFC North's a little bit different, right? Because you've got a few guys in there that will jockey each year. It could be like that with Houston for years to come, the way we see it right now, that you could jockey back and forth with C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. And that's okay, too. Ideally, you'd like to see Trevor just kind of start to separate from everybody. And that would be a hell of a sign if that were to take place. But the other part of this, for me in the quarterback world, well, at least this time of year, is one, you don't have to worry about it. And I know what I'm about to get on social media, too. I know it. Good thing the Elijah, whatever, he's just on Facebook. I know what I'm about to get about the Trevor Lawrence stuff. And they're totally going to miss the point on this whole conversation of, but there's two different conversations we're having about Trevor, but I know it's coming. But the other part of this is what it does allow you to do when you don't have to take that this year 5th overall pick and put it into the quarterback spot that might be so iffy, is you can get a great player at number 5 somewhere else and start adding blue chip guys. See, that's the domino effect. And the Jags have kind of been in that domino now for a few years since Trevor was the number 1 overall pick. They were able to go get Trayvon Walker. Guess what? He's a good player. They were able to go get Anton Harrison. He's part of that offensive line, hopefully for years to come. They were able to go get Brian Thomas Jr. Hell of a player. They got to go find another hell of a player. But that's what that does. Instead of wasting it on that quarterback, trying to find it, recycle it, all that stuff, you get to go add. Look what they've done. They're adding like blue chip players.
Right.
And I'm not going to put Anton in that, but I think Trayvon's a hell of a player. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a hell of a player. If you can go get, whether it's Travis Hunter or Mason Graham or Will Johnson or you name it, name your guy, whoever it is that they take has to be a hell of a player. And you can put him on that list. Look what Trevor's allowed you to do to build around him. Even in down years where you're picking number 5, unfortunately, or number 1 right after you drafted him for back-to-back years, you got to deliver. You've got to take this opportunity when you're not picking quarterback to deliver a blue chip player on one side of the ball or the other that builds this around Trevor Lawrence. And so, well, we look back on this 5-year, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 span, and you're like, look what Trevor allowed you to do. You got your franchise quarterback, hopefully he was here for 10, 12, whatever years, and then he also added these pieces because you didn't have to worry about it. Like, I just don't think we have that conversation enough.
No,
this year reminds me of that because you're seeing all the movement. But now you got to get it right, James Gladstone and company. You got to get it right and add another one. But the Jags are well on their way to maybe adding what I think you could argue is a third blue chipper after the Trevor Lawrence acquisition. That's pretty substantial.
That is. And it would be even better if you could, if you saw just a little bit more, then you could throw ETN in that category. You can't now, but, we can't forget about him. And then obviously Anton, feel like if we would have had this conversation this time last year, we probably would have said he's an up-and-coming blue chipper, especially after his rookie year. He had a heck of a rookie year. And, just like I'm not sure if he ascended to the next level last year, but he's still a solid guy that you can count on at right tackle, pencil in, and be all right. I think, as we've talked about, that where's that blue chipper in the second? Because even if you can get a first and second, then you're going to have 8 blue chippers on the team at one time, right? If those are locks, first and second picks, then you're going to have 8 blue chippers because you think about their rookie deals, right? Can we find that? Because what's the most amount of rookie deal blue chipper guys that the Jags have ever had at the same time? Now, that's tough to come up with right off the dome, but it ain't 8, and it ain't 6.
Well, and 8's a lot, by the way, Hamby. 8's a lot. Blue chippers alone to have 8 is a lot. I mean,
I know.
Of time, that'd be nice. Like, you look, the best thing to do is look at the Philadelphia Eagles right now, what they've done in the first and second round, and they have been able to land that. Now, I think there's some debate always about what a blue chipper is, because there's debate right now whether you say Trayvon Walker's a blue chipper, but it looks like he's ascending toward. But the idea is, even if we can have that conversation, you're in a good category, right?
Sure.
It's better to be having that conversation than the bust conversation.
Yes.
And I think you look at the Eagles, and they've been able to hammer first and second round, and because of that, they were able to win a Super Bowl, and they're able to sustain because their first and second round have really carried the freight. What I would argue is something Austen usually argues about, or at least preaches about. Not only can you hammer the first round and get those right, it's can you find a needle in the haystack? Can you find the diamond in the rough somewhere? Can you find the Puka Nacua that comes out of the 5th round and just becomes a huge contribution that even if you pick them in the first or second round, you got that kind of play. So the Jags have not been really able to do that. And I think that's really been more the missing piece. Either nail every second rounder, which, by the way, I will say this, and we don't know how well they're going to play. Their second round picks are going to be pretty active from the last couple of years, right? Bigby and Brenton Strange are going to have, we think, pretty increased roles.
Mason Smith.
This regime, those are going to be huge. And Mason Smith, and then also I'll even throw the 3rd round in because we've been talking a lot about Jarian Jones in the last couple of days. Like, that could be a huge part of this as well. So if those guys, and that's the if part, if they elevate their games, if they get into a conversation where like, oh, contract extensions and everything else. Well, there they are. And now maybe you don't need the 6th rounder, the 5th rounder, or whatever else. But one way to build it fast is to go find those. Seattle did that years ago. They were able to get the Browners of the world and even the Shermans of the world, whether it was a 5th-year or undrafted free agent guy. They were coming in and being Pro Bowls and making that whole secondary the way they were. So the Jags haven't really done any of that beyond what I would say the 3rd round. They've had some good 3rd-round finds in the last decade, from Yannick Ngakoue to Brandon Linder and others. But even those guys weren't like perennial Pro Bowl players, you know. So they need to you got to keep hammering round 1. You probably have to really do well in round 2, but it would be nice to do really good in like a round 4, 5, or 6 somewhere along the way. Mr. Pico says Javon Foster will never play. I don't know if he'll never play. I just can't even tell you anything. I don't know if he's any good or not, because we're not going to see it, or we haven't seen it, and I don't think we're going to see it this year. He's going to get 3 years into his career, and we're not even having to see him take a real snap outside of a preseason game. We've hit the noon hour here on the Players Championship. Brent and Austen Show. Jason Hamby always along as well here in the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. Thanks for hanging out with us, talking a lot of football. The league year does begin today. So 4 o'clock, you'll start to see, I think, the Jags announce a lot of this. There's anticipation. We'll have a news conference in town tomorrow with the Jacksonville Jaguars, so we could hear from a lot of these new players, maybe even James Gladstone in the front office of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been very transparent throughout the process. And then, of course, we've got the Big Players Championship. It is the eve of that. Big story in golf. One of the big stories, Tiger Woods ruptures the Achilles practicing, so he is out for even a longer amount of time than it looked. Thought he could come back even as soon as the Players Championship, but he obviously wasn't doing that. And then you'd think the Masters was on his horizon. That's what he was trying to get excited about and get ready for. And, well, that's not happening either, because now he is out. The story here, Scotty Scheffler has won 2 in a row. Can he win 3 in a row? He's a little antagonistic with the media about that question yesterday, I thought. And then you're looking at Colin Morikawa, who addressed the media for the first time since Saturday. He skipped out on Sunday despite coming in second place to Russell Henley at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And it brought up an interesting discussion, and I think one that crosses over a lot of different sports. And what's the responsibility of the player to meet the media? And I wonder how people feel about this, because I was listening to guys on the Golf Channel last night, and I thought they hammered him pretty good. I wondered where they would come down on it, but I thought they hammered Morikawa pretty well. I've never been a media guy that feels like you deserve something. I don't believe that. Now, we can ask and request, and we can even get bothered sometimes by not getting something. That's fine. But I don't think you necessarily deserve it just because it happened here or there or somewhere else or for decades or whatever else. But there is a true engine to the sports world that operates because of the media, quite frankly. And from endorsements for these players and other athletes to the growth of their sports and personalities and brands, like, those are real things. Like, that is not a good for us in the media. No, that's just the reality of the world. and more than ever, maybe right now in this world that we're living in and all the different platforms people can get on. So I do think there is some responsibility for the guy playing golf. And even though he's lost and he's pissed off, the reason he's wearing the hat with the sponsor on it and making millions and millions of dollars is essentially because he also has to do this. And in one spot, too, I'm kind of thinking, Hamby, I feel like the responsibility, you get different responsibilities as you make more money, in my opinion. There are some people in the business world that they can make a ton of money and they go under the radar. The sports world isn't really like that. Liam Cohen has added responsibility from a media standpoint, a transparency to the fan standpoint, the role he plays in his building, because he's making some $12 million a year now. That goes along with it, man. That's just part of it. And so, like, where this falls on me for Colin Morikawa is, listen, I can give you a pass here or there. Like, that's cool. Like, I get the frustrations, and it's not going to bother me too much. Of course, I wasn't covering that event. If it happened at this event, I'd probably be a little bit more critical because I would have been on the grounds and everything else.
Sure.
So I'm seeing this one from a little bit more afar. But I feel like that guy, when he's making the money he's making, and he's in the role he's in, and yeah, it's entertainment, it's his job, but the reason he has all the things that he has in part is because of the fan, not the media, although the media is the liaison, but the fan. I think he has a responsibility to communicate with the people. I mean, it would be like, there's no difference to me than somebody putting on a concert and saying, okay, I'm only doing half the show today or a quarter of the show, or I'm not doing the show, but you're going to still come out here and pay for the opening act, you know, or a comedian putting on a show, getting the payday and everything else. I mean, to me, it's now part of the job. It's, you have to finish 18 holes, and guess what? You've got to go talk to the media. That's part of it. The NFL, by the way, it is part of it. You have to do it.
Right.
You have to do it as a coach. You have to do it as a quarterback. You're supposed to make yourself available in the locker room according to the rules and regulations. This is a little bit different because these guys are independent contractors.
Right.
But it should it feels like it should fit under the same umbrella is my point. Like there's a responsibility to the engine of everything that makes it as big as it is here at the Players, in the golf world, in our athletic world, to win, lose, glad, mad, happy, sad, still do this for a couple of minutes. And I think what was interesting is he said yesterday in his news conference, and I think Morikawa is a very likable guy, by the way, but he was like, yeah, I don't regret it. And I don't feel bad about it. Like, I think I'm more bothered by that than the fact that he didn't talk on Sunday. Like, I think I'm not saying be bothered by it, but it's like, yeah, I probably should have. Like, you can sit there and be like, listen, in a weird headspace, I didn't like what I would maybe say to fans, to sponsors, to everybody else, to you guys. But I hope it never happens again. Like, I wish that's the way he kind of had answered the question because I think that's the way he should have answered the question. I think he should be answering questions after being in the final group and finishing second place in a tournament that everybody's writing about and watching and everything else.
Yeah, I think.
How do you feel about it?
No, I think I'm with you. I think the what he said yesterday kind of makes it worse because it's like, yeah, he's going to do it again. If he finishes second, he's going to continue to dodge because it makes it sound like there was not even a decision to be made. It was like almost a preconceived decision for him that if he didn't win, he was not going to talk. And where we would like to hear if a guy does dodge or do something like this is that it was a heat of the moment decision. Not that necessarily justifies it, but it does kind of justify it in our minds. If he says, yeah, man, look, I was freaking pissed and I didn't want to talk. Sorry. I wish I'll do a better job next time of trying to take a few more minutes to cool down. And then, I know I owe it to my fans. I know I owe it to my sponsors to come out here and answer the question. I know it's a part of the job, but look, Sunday was just really rough and I was trying to get out of here and it won't happen again. Like, nobody's going to care. Problem is there's not a punishment. There's nothing that anybody can do that if he doesn't, like, what does he lose? Other than some people are going to be mad at him, I guess. Or, he's going to be that's kind of like maybe his name gets tarnished a little bit as far as the golf media. Not really appreciating him. Maybe he loses a fan or two here and there. But, like, at the end of the day, like, does he really care about that?
That's the part you bring up that I think is the fascinating part of this. I really try to separate sometimes, like, our job and what we get miffed about or what we care about. And I've done this on 2 occasions already in the show today, kind of talking about, hey, it's cool that the fans are all in on the regime, even to the point where if we say anything critical right now, like, what are you talking about? And not everybody, but some. That's how we started the show. You can always listen to it on the podcast, by the way. It's up at 1:30 each and every day, wherever you find your podcast for your ride home from work, or maybe the workout at the gym or a walk in the neighborhood, whatever you're doing. Tune us in on the golf course. Why not? Just listen in to the podcast. But this one, I ask, does the fan really care? And I know not everybody that we're talking to right now, because we talk so much football and we get our audience is like sitting there and the Colin Morikawa fan and cares if he talked or not. I get it. but I'm talking about the golf world. And to put it in your language, I would say, if Trevor Lawrence didn't talk after a game, would you be pissed? Now, again, in the rules, he really can't duck that.
Right,
but
right.
That's the similar nature of this story. And what I come back to here, Hamby, is I'm not sure people would be. I think they like to hear from Trevor, but would they really care that they didn't hear from Trevor? The only reason they would think it's a big deal is because the media would make it a big deal in that moment, much like we're making a big deal out of Morikawa not talking.
Sure.
But like, are we on the same? My point is, are we on the same page in the way our business works and the way it's always worked, to where the fan right now, the people walking around here are watching 2 minutes of highlights. They're not watching his whole presser. The kids these days, the younger generation, the millennial, whatever it is, whatever age group, they're not sitting there just watching hours and hours or 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the golfers reacting to their losses, are they? Like, I truly wonder if there wasn't a rule in the NFL and Trevor Lawrence came out once every 3 weeks to talk to the media, if like the fan would complain about it. We would in the media, but would the fan complain about it? Would they be like, what the hell? I don't know that. Like, I don't want to assume that would be the case. I don't know how important that is to the fan, actually, is to hear from the quarterback. I think it's nice to hear from the quarterback.
Right.
I don't know how important it is to them to hear from the quarterback. Like, I'll give you a great example of it. And this very few times, it actually happened a little bit last year too, but there are very few times over the course of covering the Jags where like guys just don't talk or won't talk or whatever else. And the one that I remember so crazy is it wasn't off a bad thing, which I always have a lot of respect for the guys that will sit there and talk coming off a bad day and a bad season or a bad moment. I got a lot of respect for that. I think that is hard. And I think that's actually where you do earn equity as a player with people in the media or even the fans to own up to something or hear that rationale. Like Colin Morikawa could do himself favors when things don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And he could build equity with the fans and kind of get new fans in the way he would handle a certain situation is that point. But the one I'll take you back to, this was against Indianapolis. It was in Indianapolis a few years back. It was toward the end of the year. TJ Yeldon was the running back. And in that game, I want to say he had like 100 and something, like 6 or 12 yards, 2 touchdowns. And remember, now Fournette, I think it would have been at that time, would have been the guy. But Yeldon was getting a start because I think Fournette got hurt. And he ends up having a big day. Yeldon was always a real quiet guy to talk with anyway. I always would say it was like it must have been Alabama, right? Because they probably didn't let him talk at all. So he was used to not talking. And so, but Yeldon, like we went up to him in Indianapolis and just, going to ask him about a big game. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to talk today. And then you get into like, okay, dude, well, you kind of have to talk. Like, you're not really allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Like, because they're really not in the rule. Like, they're kind of supposed to talk.
Right.
In the rules. But I just remember working with PR a little bit. It's like, all right. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and like have a stare down contest with him, right? It's fine. But I mean, he's like the best, is like the storyline, one of the best players of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to talk. That's weird for us we're on the road traveling to get this stuff. And you think that's somebody we would think a fan would want to hear from.
Right.
And he's not going to talk. It's like, I'll talk Monday when we get back. Monday when we get back. And it's like, okay, that from my point of view, that's totally different when you talk Monday. But I'm just like, I was fine with it. And in part, I had a tremendous respect for it because it wasn't like he fumbled twice and ran for 30 yards. He had actually had a 100-yard game and 2 touchdowns. And he was still saying, like, I'd rather not talk today. I was like, that's crazy because everybody wants to talk when the thing's good.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk when it's bad. So it was just one of those experiences. I was like, wow, that is like so bizarre that that's how much that dude didn't want to talk, quite frankly, to the media. Just was uncomfortable about it, didn't want to do it. That even at a 100-yard, 2 touchdown day, he wouldn't do it. Or didn't want to do it.
Kind of crazy. Yeah, dude.
Crazy?
You take advantage. How many of those did you have in your career? 2?
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of them.
Like, yeah, I mean,
I just always thought that was really wild. I love Mr. Pico. He'll never let Carlos Hyde off the hook for the Monday night. The only guy that didn't show up for our Monday night All Access at the time was Monday night, and he didn't show up. And Pico, he remembers it all the time. So anyway, like this whole converse, I'm going to give you another example of this from like the Morikawa standpoint. This is what I was thinking about today. I do think sports like golf, and I think NASCAR has run into this. So this would have been before your time, Hamby, but I think a lot of folks in the chat would know this. I think it was like the early 2000s time frame. I don't know what exactly is it 2000 to 2004? Is it 1998 to 2002? Is it? But in that time frame, NASCAR was hot. Mm-hmm. Like it was hot. It was growing. It was fast. Fast growing. It was like a cool thing. And it's like, wow, this is off the charts. TV ratings were really good. Everything else. And part of like the explanation, I didn't cover NASCAR up close, but part of the whole thought of that as a young guy in the business, and I remember reading about it, like why the rise in NASCAR was the accessibility, accessibility to those drivers. You could get in the pits with the crew. You could walk in a garage and go see Jeff Gordon and he'd stop and talk to you. Like the star of the sport would sit, you could talk to him, boom, just like that in the media. So that's a friendly thing to cover, but it also showcases, wow, that's cool. Like even for the fans, because the fans had pit passes and everything else, like they still do. But even those guys were more accessible. Well, what happened was the sport ballooned. Those guys got paid. Everybody's now getting paid. They became rock stars to a degree. They're flying on private jets. They're flying in and out now, and they're all now in their own little clubhouse and fraternity and everything else.
Yeah.
And now you're not as accessible to everybody. The part that we loved about you, that you were just like me, even though you were the guy on TV, is gone. Well, I think golf's got to be careful of that. You know, golf has star guys like Rory, like Colin, like Tiger, like these guys. And now they make so much money. And now it feels like they don't need you.
Yeah.
It used to be very simple to go up to the range and go see one of these guys. The stars now I'm talking. You can still go see one of these guys and talk to them. But I feel like, and we've already might have missed that. Like it might already be beyond that, but I couldn't help but think of NASCAR a little bit in that sense where this should be accessible. This is not the quarterback of an NFL team making $60 million a year, insulated by an infrastructure that allows them to come out twice a week, or you can't get to them because they've got a million marketing people on their team and everything else. It's not the biggest sport in the United States. Now it's a big sport globally. So I wonder if I think these guys have to be careful of that. I think NASCAR lost its way a little bit with that. I think money gets to the point where you get so insulated that you're now not one of us in some of these sports. There are just some senses of stardom where it's like, we know we're not one of you.
Right.
But the crazy thing about like NASCAR in this sport is these dudes are built like me, not like Austen.
Right. Regular looking
so
guys.
It feels like they're everyday dudes. They're just regular guys. But when you're not a regular guy and you're not accessible to see you look like a regular guy, like what's really helped them out the last couple of years? What people said, Full Swing.
Yeah.
Full Swing helped them
I watched it
because they looked like it showed personality, right? All these things we also talk about, by the way, Hamby, with baseball. Baseball needs to do more of this too to seem like they're more regular guys.
Yeah. So
I just want, there's something there. I don't know exactly what it is. And this is just one little instance with Colin Morikawa. So excuse me for being too dramatic about it, but I just thought it related a little bit to kind of like what NASCAR in the last 20 years. I think that's been one of the things. I have no idea. I'd have to ask somebody that really covers it if they feel as strongly about that. But when you start making the regular dude a star, that becomes the high school kid or the high school whatever who had a really good day and now doesn't talk to everybody else.
Bro, let me ask you this. I'm not.
You don't like that guy.
I'm not.
You don't like that kid.
Yeah. I'm not all that caught up into the whole, every little thing between PGA and Live. Is there a possibility that some of the thinking behind some of the guys in the PGA is, well, I didn't go to Live, so I can do no wrong? Like, it doesn't matter what I do, really. As long as I don't go over there, then fans should just compare me to that. I can't get any worse than that. So anything that I do, look, I didn't go to live. I stuck with the PGA through and through. I should be beloved no matter what. Is there any shot could be a thing?
It's a good point. I think there's an interesting disconnect there, but also it can go two different ways. One, Justin Thomas is a guy that recently came out and said, hey, we have got to speak to our fans. He actually, everything we're just saying, he was enforcing.
Okay.
He was like, he wrote a letter, I think it was, to the rest of hey, we got to be accessible. The fans are important to us. It's like this reconnection.
When was
based
that?
on the whole live thing, like that kind of, I want to say it was just simply like 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It might have been less than that. But the point is like, hey, we want the fan engagement. We want the numbers going up. We want the kids coming by. We want this. We want this. We don't want to come off as there's a wall here, or we're the snotty golfer that grew up on a country club or whatever else. Like, right. We want to open the door. He actually suggested that. But I do think your point is somewhat correct in the fact that these guys are in a spot right now because those other dudes that went to live made so much money that they're still kind of in like
living on the moral high ground.
What do you call it? Well, no, I would say like collection mode is what I would call it. Like you're still like, okay, I'm still trying to acquire the what I probably earned or deserve for staying, to your point.
Yeah.
Like that, whatever that seems like, whether that's equity, whether that's attention, whether that's money, whether that's let me off the hook because I want to go do this, and freedom. Like, I don't know what that is, but I get what I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think there is probably an underbelly of that with the guys that went and chased money and got the bag and just took it.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that said, hey, we're trying to do what's best for the tour. And I don't know if all these topics kind of intertwine or not, but I just do think they're kind of interesting in the golf world. But again, this isn't just a golf topic. I think this is a sports topic. I often question, because I do think I see so many people in our business that I have for years that feel like I will see their reaction to getting either turned down for an interview or not getting something. And I'm like, why do you think you deserve that? Like, that's really where my mind goes. Like, why do we have to take a step back sometimes as a business, as a media, and say, like, times have really changed. Do we still do things that way? One other note I'll give you on this, and I was always surprised. And this was a weird juxtaposition in my head. So the Masters is really one of the cool events to cover. The Masters, from a media standpoint, compared to, say, the players, where we're out here and roaming around and we can shoot some things and get some things and tell stories, the Masters is very hard to do that at. They don't really let you do a lot. So, like, if you're lazy, the Masters is a great thing to cover because you can't really do much. But sometimes we like to go to those things and try to hustle and get some local stories and other things. Well, you really can't even take a lot of your gear out. A lot of times there's a lot of restrictions to it. And so with that, it was also a hard credential to get over the years. It took me like 5-6 years to get a credential to the Masters. And so I just always had this view like, well, they only care about like CBS or ESPN and the Golf Channel, and then they don't really care about anybody else. And then I went there a few times, and it's like really just the opposite. There's nobody on the planet in terms of an organization, I would say. Though these guys do a really good job, so maybe I should say second or at least tie. But that does like a better job with the media that is there than the Masters. First of all, I mean, they feed you, Hamby, like you're at a 5-star resort. So,
right.
And I'm not trying to like, it's unbelievable, like what they feed you. But they also, like, they constantly feed you. You can like get anything at any time of day. So media loves when they get fed. But they obviously have like that lottery system where they pick certain people to play every year and play Augusta. Very cool. The day after the tournament, obviously everybody would die to play the Masters. Augusta, if you're into golf, and you get that opportunity, or a lot of people have gotten the opportunity to do it. And then, but this is what I really learned is that when they built the new clubhouse, they put this whole timeline thing up of like Bobby Jones and everything else. And I just did not know this and thought the total opposite. Jones, when he started the Masters, when this whole thing got going, he was a big advocate for the media. He knew how important the media was. And especially at that time and that day in history, at that point in history, and like appreciated it and always had a good relationship with it. And it's something the Masters has really, one of the tenets that they've kind of kept through all these decades and, all the different renditions and how our media and our world has changed, but they have stuck true to that. And I just found that really interesting that was one that I've covered, and I was like, gosh, this thing's like tough. You better watch what you do. You're like walking on eggshells. You're like all this stuff. And it's actually just the opposite, the way they view the media role in the tournament.
Right.
But you would never think that when you're trying to get a credential or anything else. And I always say this about these guys here. The one thing I think the players did such a good job of in trying to be transparent in our business, this is an international event. Like, we think it's a local event. It is a local event. But it's an international event. The world of golf is watching this area all week. Huge. We know that, I think, but we have to remind ourselves of that. This isn't just hey, cool, got to get stuck in traffic, have a party on 16, 17, 18, and the golf will be the backdrop. No. In Japan, in South Korea, in Australia, and Europe, and right here, this is a huge deal, this event in our own backyard. The one thing I really give a lot of credit to the players over the years is as those events get bigger, and we think about the NFL, who loves like the national media, right? They want the Schefters and Rappaports, everybody else. These guys have always taken care of the local media. Right. Tremendous. Like, I think they do a great job of that, still valuing the local impact here in Northeast Florida, and like at least accommodating the best they can to whether it's our needs or requests or anything else. I really think they do a great job of that. So it's an interesting balance. Like, you do get the sense sometimes when you cover the big sports that they really don't care about the local media, right? They're after all the big dudes. They want the big guns, the big reach. I think these guys do. I've always said this now for the last 10, 15 years, do the greatest job of really like making you feel like it's important if we cover it too.
Right.
So I think it's pretty wild. That whole thing is like, maybe this whole 20 minutes was for journalism class instead. But really to come back around to it on the Colin Morikawa stuff, I do think we have to sit back sometimes and ask ourselves, like, how much are we concerned with it in the media or have a view of something versus those people sitting at the picnic tables right there watching this golf? Like, do they even care if Morikawa talked the other day or not? And I would think across sports, nobody cares because Morikawa name and golf in general, maybe more niche. It's not going to, not everybody's going to be that passionate about it. But I wonder if the true golf fan really cared if Morikawa didn't talk the other day or not, is something I don't know the answer to. But I think we'd have to put it in an NFL landscape to really find out. And it's not going to get there because of the reason it's not going to get there because of some of the rules. Right. Like the pro football writers and everybody else have rules that these guys have to talk at certain times, which obviously makes it good for them because they would duck it all the time if they could. In the NFL, they would definitely do that. All right. Hey, listen, what we got? Van Jefferson to the Titans. I do want to get to some of the thoughts in the chat. Had some fun things going on in there. And when we come back, Daniel Griffiths' article, we got to get into that. We got no gate fees coming up at 2:00 today. We got 1:00 Cup date. Speaking of NASCAR, 1:30 a week with us. Action Sports Shacks here at the Players all day. CBS 47, Fox 30, 11:15 tonight. We'll have a special as always. And there is the lineup you can watch at actionsportshacks.com. It's where you can see the latest Daniel Griffiths article. We're talking Patrick Mekari. He deep dives into what maybe is the biggest free agent signing for the Jaguars. And if not the biggest, the most important. We'll do that when we come back on the Brent and Austen Show.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give That One Painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with That One Painter First Coast on your team.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
I'm ready to show my hand, ready to take a stand. Wait on a sign above, and I am ready, ready. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game. 'Cause I just live for the game.
For 60 years, the Bob Hayes Invitational Track Meet has provided competitive events, and we're also happy to provide scholarship opportunities too. Join us for the annual Hall of Fame Gala March 13th at the Potter's House and at the James Day Middle School Meet at UNF March 14th.
There they go.
And don't forget the annual Bob Hayes Track and Field Meet at UNF Saturday, March 15th. Get tickets and info at bhitm22.org. For vendors and partnerships, call 904-222-1075.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
All right, what do we got? Patrick Mekari. He is the new, we think, right guard of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Daniel Griffiths is writing about him today on actionsportsjacks.com. 95% pass block win percentage, 18th amongst interior offensive line, 13% blown run block. And then a bunch of snaps at all those different positions, which we highlighted earlier this week. And Austen, I think this could be – Austen Hamby, I think this could be the biggest free agent move the Jags made. I know there's a lot of talk right now about Jordan Lewis at that nickel spot, what it does to Jarian Jones. They all could be big. I mean, I get it. We could go a bunch of different ways. I can make a case for a lot of them. We know there were like 4 to 5 starters, I think, that the Jaguars found here. The center position is interesting, but I don't think we're buying into that much. Like almost hoping, okay, is there another level of this or an upgrade possibility, or you really better be right? But this is a guy that I think they could be right on. This is one that I believe has some upside to it. This is one that I kind of like. And the fact that they got a guy in his 27-year-old range that's played a lot of football, a lot of different positions, seems like a good, again, IQ guy, right? Comes with a lot of experience. And I don't have to wonder if a young guy coming into the NFL that's drafted in the 3rd round at right guard is going to be good enough. I think there's a floor, again, raise the floor with this guy that says, hey, we can keep doing what we're doing in Jacksonville and be okay on that offensive front. And then there's the upside of him maybe being pretty good. You can twist his numbers and twist his play whichever way you want. If you don't like it, you can sit on a couple of PFF rankings that aren't great. You can sit on the fact that of all the 5 positions he's played the right guard the least amount. But the bottom line is, I think this was what I would call a cool chess piece in the free agency game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and one that actually does raise the floor of the football team versus going to draft a young guy and hoping that they've got the next guy on the roster, or moving a guy from a different position and saying, let's try to stick him at right guard or something like that. I really like the Mekari move, and Griffiths writes about it on actionsportsjacks.com. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I like it too. The first thing, though, Brent, is like it should be your best move as far as like the one that makes the most impact because it was your most dollars. That was the most dollars that you committed of all the 9 yesterday. 3 years, $37.5 million, I believe it was. So, look, yeah, a guy that's got a lot of versatility, which is big. And it gives you the opportunity. And again, I continue to revert back to what I said last year, and the way I'm thinking about it, every single one of these signings is how much is Gladstone playing for this year, and how much is he playing for 26 and beyond. And I think we have to continue to weigh that even as he's drafting, because this is a guy, because of his versatility, where, look, if you stick him at right guard, obviously, like you said, he hadn't played a ton of snaps there, but if you stick him there and he's good, great. You got him for 3 years. But also, if you draft a right guard in the 3rd round this year and you're not a huge fan of what you see from one of the other guys, Ezra, Walker, doesn't matter, he's a guy that could potentially move there, right? Where you're not, you have a lot more than just 5 guys even going forward, because look, I have to have a high level of confidence that they're going to take a guard at a decent in a decent round in this year's draft. I don't know whether that's going to be left or right, because they got Ezra locked up for a little bit. They got Mekari locked up for a little bit. But whichever one, if they take somebody in the 3rd round, they take a Booker in the 2nd round, or they take a Ratledge in the 3rd round, they're going to want to see that guy play, especially in 26, 27. They're going to want to hand over the keys of the starting job. Well, at least now it's not right guard or bust. This guy only plays right guard or whatever. So I do like that versatility piece. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he got a lot more money and he got the 3-year deal instead of the 2nd-year deal, which a lot of guys, especially with the linemen, have been getting, because, look, if he's not even your future right guard, it's not the end of the world. You have him at $11, $12 million a year, and you can put him anywhere else on the line.
Yeah, listen, from Daniel Griffiths' article, you can read about it again, actionsportsjacks.com. I thought he noted all the different metrics, and That's why I don't try to read verbatim for this article, just because there's a lot of numbers to throw at you, but you can see it in the context. One numbers that he even says is a red flag are actually the yellow flags. He had 13 penalties, which led all guards this year. But he also brings up, again, there's something about him being 27, yet all the experience that he has, and also the experience in Baltimore that he has. He's not an old guy coming in at 31 years old, trying to hang on for one more year, whatever it was, like the Darbys of the world and everything else that didn't work out. But I think we can simply ask this question, and I still feel like I answer this in a positive way, but an unknown way, are the Jags better at right guard for 2025 with Mekari rather than one more year with a guy like Sheriff?
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating because Sheriff did perform well last year. It actually was his best year in a Jags uniform.
Mm-hmm.
He comes from Washington, and he's got all these accolades. He's the most decorated player the Jags have had by the time he gets to Jacksonville. But he has some injury problems. The Jags have some problems. He doesn't play great at times for the 2 years specifically, but he's playing hurt a lot. He's a tough dude, and he means so much to, I think, that offensive line and to the room and everything else. But he's now, 32 years old, and he did deliver a nice comeback season last year. I think it went a little bit under the radar. He was not the problem. Him and Morse, I think, did a nice job, and yet they still come out of that season saying, we got to do better setting the dish. That's the phrase, set the dish. And so I don't know really how good Sheriff was anymore at the end of the day, even if some of the PFF numbers were better than the last couple of years. I actually like this move because you get 27 years old instead of 32. The bottom line is Sheriff is a better player in his career than Mekari. Fair enough. But right now for 2025, I actually think Mekari is a better play. I like this play. And all the other things that you said are true, too, the versatility, where they might have to put some stopgap measures in, whether it's at center or left guard or somewhere else. This guy can literally play them all. Now, ideally, he sticks at right guard. He plays right guard very well, and you don't have to move him. That's also an okay thing. There's one other little sub note to this story of right guard. You know, the Jags thought, well, the old regime thought, as far as I could tell, that they had landed on something with Cooper Hodges, the kid out of Baker County.
Right.
Played at App State, drafted it in the 7th round. We're looking for some of those finds, by the way. Cooper Hodges might have been on the verge of being one of those finds. Hodges gets hurt 2 years in a row, and he hasn't played. But they really thought they were onto something with him. They thought they might be able to, when Sheriff left this year, plug him in if all things were going well and injuries weren't an issue. Well, the bottom line is that injury last year was so significant. I think we start to wonder if he'll even get back on the football field type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the latest is on that, but I've heard rumblings like that it was that significant of an injury for Cooper Hodges. So if you're wondering kind of, hey, what about this? I think that Cooper Hodges play was a significant replacement play and a very probable solution under the old regime at the very least until these injuries came up. And this latest injury was a devastating leg injury, really a bad one, which again, as put into question, I think from what I've understood, if he's even going to be, able to play again. And I don't know the latest on that one, but hopefully we can find that out, or we'll see what the latest is. I don't even know if they've commented on that. Maybe I just missed it. That's, I guess, a possibility as well. But anyway, I just think that's an interesting footnote to this because they really did think they might have had a guy that could just go right into that spot, and then you wouldn't have to spend this kind of money on Mekari or shoot the way this dude plays. Maybe you would have spent it on him, and he would be your center.
Yeah,
so you just don't know. But anyway, I think the Mekari thing is kind of fascinating. You just said it. Maybe he does have to be the best one because of the pay. But it really would be nice to set it and forget it there at right guard.
Right.
Like, it's just not a position you want to have to talk about. Like, you just want to be like, okay, that's good.
Yep.
And there are a couple positions on the football field that are like that. I really think like that nose, that defensive tackle, that's kind of one too. Like, hey, get Devon Hamilton playing well, and like, hey, we got this. That's cool. It's not going to be sexy, all that stuff, but that's fine. We're good here. We're good at right guard. We're good at center. We're good at left guard. And then you can, if you want to be like all pro at left tackle and right tackle, that's okay too. But like, it's okay at some spots just to be like,
we just don't want to hear their names.
You just don't want to hear it. Just set it and forget it.
Yep.
And I think it'll be interesting to see if the Jags can get that out of Mekari. They certainly did pay him like that. And along with probably Jordan Lewis, I would think those two guys are the headliners of this free agent class. I know De'Ami Brown brings excitement again. We can go up and down the list, but I think from actual play and the domino effect of what transpires at those positions with Jarian Jones moving to the outside, or what Austin said earlier about different kind of play scheme-wise, whatever Campanile wants to do, I think obviously that Lewis move is pretty significant. And he played at a Pro Bowl level last year, according to everybody out of Dallas. Like, they might be getting a Pro Bowler at the nickel corner spot if he duplicates it and does it again. I mean, he is 29, but he's not 34.
Right.
You know? Like,
and
we
corners
commented about his age, but it doesn't mean he's done.
Yeah, and nickels can seem like they can last a little bit longer than, your outside guys historically. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like that's the case. I did want to point out one thing from the chat, and I know we're about to hop in it and get some comments from everybody. But on this graphic, Daniel himself hopped in the chat and said on the second little thing right here, that's a 1.3% blown run block, seventh among left guard. He said it was a poor choice of poor font choice on his part. It is in there. It's just hard to see, but that means he's only blowing 1%. I mean, so we're moving guys at least at some level on 98.7% of snaps on the run category. So that's a good one.
Yeah. Well, by the way, that's probably just as much my eyes as it is font because I'm looking on the computer here. So thanks for that update. And well, like that goes along with, hey, don't worry about it. We're not going to talk about them, right? Because when do you talk about them? When we got whirly birds and whiffs.
Yep.
That's when you start talking about the offensive lineman. Now, again, the penalty thing is notable. You want to stay away from that as well, or we'll be talking about you. You mentioned the chat, and I want to get into the chat a little bit. Had a lot of commentary throughout the morning, including, some of these go away. They actually were telling, I think Mr. Hugo said Daniel Griffiths was on the competition yesterday. Whatever the kid's got to do. He's doing a great job writing for us, actionsportsshacks.com, and going to get his name out there a little bit. Like I said yesterday, if you're going to go on there, just make sure you throw out once in a while. Just drop in a little bit. Check out all my work at actionsportsshacks.com. That's fine. We don't look at those guys as competition, Mr. Hugo, just to let you know. Anyway, letting Tunsil go was asinine, says Mr. Pico. I'm sure they agree with that in Houston for some fans. Jags fan, the Colts QB competition is a dream. This one from Mr. Hugo Hamby. Hamby's having a panic attack. This is when I thought I was going to have to call 911 for you. Thinking about facing Brent in the bottom of the ninth.
Oh, I'd eat that up.
That's a good one. Roger says, and I have no idea where this is going, so let's see. After the breakdown Hamby had last week about Kirk, my question for him now is, given every move both team has made, who's the most improved going into next season? On paper, right now, Texans or Jags? And it's kind of what we just talked about.
Yeah, that's a good question.
If you just break down those two teams, how would you answer that question?
Let me go back and pull up the Texans moves just so I don't forget anybody. But I know obviously
I know you're going to answer this. I actually still think it's Houston. But I think the point of my story was they didn't really grow the gap incredibly. I think the Kirk move is the one that pivots it the most.
Yeah.
You took Kirk off, which means the Jags still have a question mark. You give them Kirk, who I think is a good player. So to me, that's the move. How do you close that gap? How do you defend Kirk in two games with Houston? How do you replace Kirk here in Jacksonville? To me, that will be the indicator, at least as of now. And, of course, the draft will also be an indicator of where this stands between the two franchises, which, by the way, started with Houston, I don't want to say significantly ahead, but definitely ahead of the Jaguars in the division.
Yeah, I think so, too, because, I mean, look, it's hard to gauge who had the better, who improved the most, because You tell me how much Johnny Munn is going to impact our football team. You tell me how much Hunter Long is going to impact our football team. And the question is, do they improve the depth? Yes. Are they good options? Run blocking, tight ends? Yes, but how much of that are you going to be able to see and see, like, man, those guys really impacted the football game today? So you kind of, when you're looking at and you're trying to actually say one team or the other, you pretty much got to look at the starters, the guys that are going to make impacts that you know week in, week out. The Texans have signed more guys of that caliber than I think the Jags have. And I think that they've answered a couple more questions than we have. Even with a guy like a $7 million for a guy like Sheldon Rankins to put in the middle of their defense, like a $7 million deal would have been our fourth biggest contract, and that was not theirs. So they've signed more guys, and it's not just about quantity, obviously. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson is an impact player that you're going to put on at safety, and that's not going to be a question for the rest of the year. Christian Kirk, regardless of whatever weird psycho, or thinking that we've done, he's going to be fully healthy, and he's a 29-year-old football player. So he's going to be ready to go. He's going to be an immediate impact because they don't have Tank Dell. They also signed Braxton Berrios on a 2-year deal. That's the guy who's going to make plays. Like, if we sign a guy like that, Braxton Berrios, at least just like it kind of shores up the room. He's not a guy that you're going to, oh my gosh, but it shores up the room where you have a lot of questions. Yeah. They have a lot of questions. We do too, but ours were made and they took it and they helped them more than us.
Yeah, there's some fairness in all of that. The Berrios one doesn't do much for me, a year, $2 million, but I've had several people comment about that. It's like, well, why didn't we even make a move like that? I'm like, well, didn't we kind of we made De'Ami Brown is that on, but bigger.
Sure.
Like, I think that's kind of like one of those kind of moves, just even a little bit more investment to say, I think we can get more than a Berrios would get. So I'm not bothered by that at all. Interesting comment from Michelle on the chat. And this goes back to the whole media thing that I was talking about with, I specifically said, hey, what if Trevor didn't talk? And she said it was difficult to watch the same responses week after week when we lost. Maybe give Trevor a few days to rebound, process the game before an interview. Seems like it would be more beneficial. And it's interesting is I actually feel like Trevor does the greatest job of anybody on that, right away, even better than Doug did. I do think the coach speak after that gets very redundant for fans.
Oh, yeah.
It's something else that I didn't find this bothered people early in my career. I feel like it really bothers people now. And I don't know if that's just because Jacksonville and the losing and everything else, that the monotony of the same answers, the look in the mirror kind of stuff really bothers people, which shows you they actually are listening to it to answer one of my questions. And
they were definitely watching Doug last year.
They also they can get bothered by it. So, yeah, the thing about it for us in this world, and I wonder for you, the fan, is we like the raw emotion of it. The best thing, that's why Colin Morikawa, after losing, is appealing to us, I think, as a viewer, a fan, or whatever else. Same thing with the end of a game for Doug and Trevor and everyone else, is if they gave them 3 hours till after the game when you talked, or the next day, you would never get that kind of raw emotion out of these guys. And I think people actually do not like that quite a bit, being able to see it. Hey, a couple hellos from the Players' Championship, including a welcome to the Jacksonville Sharks. Their training camp continues. Great to be partnered up with the Sharks, of course. And you can check out their games this season, their home games right here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. We'll have more on that coming up next week. Check out UNFOspreys.com for the latest in Ospreys sports as the spring season in full go mode, including track and field, where they now have an All-American for the first time. You can get more information on that at UNFOspreys.com, and we'll share that story probably next week a little bit more. Might even have her on the program, so we'll talk more about that. We also want to say hello to Republic Services and go to recyclingsimplified.com for the latest on how you can recycle in your home and really help become more efficient in our environment. More on those guys and recyclingsimplified.com. So thanks for hanging out with us here at the Players' Championships. Brent and Austen Show, Action Sports Jacks 24/7 Network. Really just getting going today now. Cup date at 1 o'clock. 1:30, it'll be a week with us with Olivia Tassley. 2 o'clock, no gate fees, talking baseball and softball. We'll talk to a future Florida Gators softball player today on the show. And then it's Young and Norvell at 4 o'clock. And we are live on TV at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6:50, 10 o'clock later tonight back in studio, and 11:15 on CBS 47 and Fox 30 for the Players' Championship coverage. How about your pick quick? I got Colin Morikawa, believe it or not. Hamby, you can tell me later. And we'll
give me Sepp Straka.
Who your pick is.
Sepp Straka, Georgia alumni. He's hot. Let's go.
He has been hot. He has been hot. So there you go. Have a good Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us.
When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway, or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness, and most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC, we are professional grade.
Action Sports Jax is the biggest brand in Jacksonville, and we're excited to add another partnership for this team's biggest season yet. Action Sports Jax 24/7 is now the official streaming network of the Jacksonville Sharks for their 15th season.
The Jacksonville Sharks are your champions.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants.
We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter.
Save $1,000 or more when you bundle a Connecticut Premier Softener with a Connecticut K5 drinking water system. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
Is it in the dying moments?
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit,